In a world ruled by the powerful, where strength decides everything, our boy starts off as the weakest of them all, humiliated and looked down on by everyone. But everything changes when he unlocks a mysterious system that grants him a brand new skill every single day. With his growing power, he takes revenge on the bullies who tormented him, wins over every popular girl, and builds an unstoppable harem. But before that, he was just a loser, walking down the street and remembering the day he first awakened. He is on a planet called the Blue Star, the year 2088 of the new era, and near him, a girl with cute rabbit ears is live streaming with her followers. The viewers quickly notice that the boy behind her also has rabbit ears. The girl decides to mess around with Lin for fun and tries to knock him down while streaming. Using her special abilities, she easily pushes him, and her audience starts praising her for it. Lin feels hurt because he didn't even do anything to her, yet he still ends up being treated badly. When he regains consciousness, he sees a large bus rushing toward him. The strong impact sends him flying to the side, leaving him in pain. The girl keeps laughing and teasing him on her live stream while recording everything. The driver stops his bus, annoyed that something got in his way. He approaches Lin and demands that he pay for damaging his expensive vehicle. Using his own abilities, the driver starts attacking Lin to teach him a lesson. During this conflict, Lin feels completely helpless and wishes he could be stronger. Just when he thinks it's over, something amazing happens. A digital voice, calling itself System Number 9527, appears in front of him. The system says that after 1,000 years, it has finally found a perfect master and is now using its power to protect him. Lin soon realizes that he has gained new abilities: X-ray vision, hacking skills, and weaving talents. The system explains that Lin's abilities are already stronger than most level 13 kids. Lin wants to pick one ability to focus on, but the system tells him that every day, a new random ability will awaken on its own. The system also says it can revive Lin back at the place where he previously lost consciousness. Lin agrees to test his luck and activates the random ability feature. A bright message appears, congratulating him for unlocking a top-tier skill, one that lets him boost all his stats and abilities. When Lin opens his eyes again, he finds himself in front of the same driver. But this time, his strength and jumping power are on another level. The girl and the driver are shocked to see the same boy they thought was weak suddenly leaping high into the air. Lin jumps onto the truck with ease. The driver tries to use his abilities again, but Lin calmly pushes him aside and says he's not giving up today. With just a light push, the driver gets knocked back several meters. The girl, stunned and speechless, quickly grabs her phone and starts recording everything for her audience. The system notified Lin that his Rabbit Fist ability had activated, boosting the strength of his punches and his attack speed. Meanwhile, the female streamer got into trouble for her mean behavior. Lin, feeling confident, took her phone, went live, and announced himself as the main rabbit. The next day at school, the girls were gossiping about the live stream. They were surprised that their usually quiet classmate could handle bullies like that. Just as the conversation about Lin was heating up, he walked into the classroom. Immediately, all his classmates paid attention to him and even complimented him for what happened on the live stream. The driver and the streamer from the previous day both bowed and apologized to Lin, recognizing him as a role model. At that moment, Lin realized he hadn't received a new ability yet, so he called on the system. The system ran the ability lottery and congratulated him on gaining the World Planting ability. While Lin tried to figure out what this new power did, all his classmates watched him closely. The system explained that with this ability, Lin would know all the seeds in the world, and any plant he planted would definitely grow. Lin got a little frustrated and told the system that the ability's name was misleading. It sounded too hopeful. Then another student, Li Nan, who had powers over wind, entered the classroom. He offered Lin a chance to earn some money. This was the same guy who used to bully Lin every day, but today he acted friendly. Li Nan mentioned a club that was hiring, explaining that it was a gay club. Lin took the offer seriously, thinking Li Nan must be confident about money. Li Nan quickly defended himself, saying he had never actually been to a gay club. Lin started teasing him, and a small conflict broke out between them. The teacher walked in and stopped the argument. He asked everyone to sit down and announced that there would be an exam next week for all students. He added that students with awakened abilities would have to take a special exam to get into Awakener University, the top school for skilled motivators. Lin realized this was his chance to improve himself. Without hesitation, he raised his hand and asked to take the special exam. The teacher told him he wasn't qualified and would only embarrass the school if he tried. His words hit Lin hard, but he insisted that he deserved a chance just like everyone else. He didn't like being looked down on and wanted to prove himself quickly. After Lin awakened 13 abilities, the teacher finally agreed to give him a chance. He said that if he could rank among the top 10 in the upcoming test, he would let him take the special exam. Lin accepted the challenge without hesitation. The teacher decided to let the results speak for themselves, and Lin was determined to give it his all. In just a few moments, he was running toward the school gates, ready to show what he could do. Besides worrying about the tests, Lin also thought about money for tuition since his salary wasn't enough to cover it. He stopped just in time to avoid being hit by a car. Some beautiful girls got out and immediately recognized him as the same rabbit from before. His classmates nearby were totally starstruck by the girls, decided to stay calm and introduced himself to Ming. He remembered that she was the host of that live stream. Ming handed him the jacket he had lost in the fight and asked him to keep her live stream a secret. Her friend Chin was the top-ranked student at school. Ming told Chin about Lin, the unique guy who had faced a 2-star rival. Curious, Lin offered to show some of his abilities, but the girls quickly ended the conversation and suggested they part ways. Lin wanted to get to know Ming better, so he suggested going out for lunch or just chatting. Chin, despite the big strength gap, invited him to a friendly fight next week. She said that if he won, he could make any wish, though Ming thought he probably wouldn't succeed. Ming advised Lin to just take his jacket and skip the challenge. Lin thanked her but said he wasn't going to back down. After the girls left, Lin got a message. It was from someone named Mail, who was in trouble and asking for help. Mail promised to pay any amount, which excited Lin. He hopped on his motorcycle and headed out to help. The situation was happening in a cyber cafe, where a boy named San, an awakened healer with 9 bronze stars, was being targeted by a group of young people. They weren't satisfied even when he offered all his money. They wanted to rough him up badly. Suddenly, Lin showed up with a bat, scolding the attackers for their actions. The attackers, annoyed by his confidence, turned on him. Lin snapped his fingers and called in reinforcements. Dozens of people arrived. The thugs didn't like seeing someone else taking charge in their territory, so they abandoned San and ran off. Grateful, San was curious how Lin managed to gather such a group. To show his thanks, San insisted that Lin be his big brother forever, but Lin was mainly motivated by money. He introduced himself as a high school student and accepted San's offer of 30,000, plus a promise that San would always help him. Lin figured he could use some of that money to pay the helpers and still have enough. It turned out San had been playing a female character in a game, and the guys asked him to speak on the voice chat. He tried to change his voice, but the person was sitting right in front of him. After hearing the full story, Lin decided it was time to get back to work. San offered him a ride in his car, but Lin preferred to go home on his motorcycle. He figured today was just his lucky day because he met that beautiful girl and wanted to get home early so he wouldn't mess up in front of her. A new school day began, but Lin barely had time for it. He was very tired from staying up all night studying for the upcoming exam. He drank some coffee to wake up because today the teacher was going to explain the details of the special exam. To clear his mind, Lin asked the system to give him a new ability for the day. Thanks to the lottery, he gained photographic memory, perfect for acing final exams. Lin decided to test it with simple examples, and it worked flawlessly. It felt like every letter, number, and symbol was permanently etched into his memory. With this ability, learning became effortless, and Lin was basically unstoppable in class. Suddenly, the teacher scolded him for reading a physics textbook during a Chinese lesson. He reminded him that he wouldn't be allowed to take the special exam if he didn't focus in class. Lin decided to stand out and told him he already knew the book by heart. A little showdown between teacher and student began, and Lin didn't lose. He recited all the data from the textbook flawlessly, leaving the teacher stunned. Despite this, the English teacher claimed Lin still couldn't take the special exam because his overall knowledge was too low. Lin recited a little-known fact from the textbook anyway and left, shocking the teacher once more. During break, everyone checked the school rankings and saw that Lin, the weakest student, had jumped to first place. Lin was grateful to the system. With photographic memory, he could now pass any exam easily. 10 days later, the skills competition started in the arena. The stands were packed with students and spectators. The delegate from District 30, one of the top 100 students in the country, was introduced first. Then Chin was announced. She had been in the top 3 in the last round. Chin was furious because she had come in second place. During her outburst, Lin greeted her, and she barely controlled her emotions. She admitted defeat, and Lin suggested they have dinner together. She also apologized for thinking he was weak back then. The way she said it was so sweet that Lin felt himself falling for her. The host noticed their connection and announced it over the loudspeaker. Then he told Lin to compete bravely in rabbit form. Lin confidently announced to the audience that he had come to take first place among all students. Many spectators assumed he had just gotten lucky on the exams and would be quickly eliminated in the ring. Lin grabbed the microphone from the host and told everyone to cheer for their favorites, warning them it wouldn't be easy today. His bold words caused a stir in the stands. He firmly declared himself the #1 student among all participants, even as spectators advised him to be more modest. The host then explained the rules. Winners advance, losers are eliminated. There were 257 students. and their numbers would be sent to their phones. Since the number of participants was odd, one student would randomly skip the first round. While nearby students prayed for victory, Lin yawned from boredom. His number, 66, was called, which made other participants upset that this underdog had once again become a random player. The competition began, and participants stepped into the ring. Lin noticed that Chin was competing too. She won her match effortlessly, forcing her opponent to give up. Using her ice abilities, she created a massive icicle above the participant to block their movements. Everyone watching agreed that Chin was definitely a skilled ice awakener. Lin grabbed a book and started studying techniques to counter Chin. 10 minutes later, players were being eliminated one by one. Lin stopped learning new techniques because they were making him sleepy. Instead, he decided to call the system to get a useful ability. The system gave him a new S-rank ability, Body Enhancement. Excited, Lin activated it right away. His clothes started tearing as his muscles grew rapidly, and he felt stronger than ever. Nearby girls couldn't help but admire him again. His pants had torn, though, revealing some comical underwear designs. The second round ended, and once again, Lin was the lucky one to skip a turn. Luck seemed to be on his side throughout the second day of the competition. On the third day, Lin was among the top 35 participants, but was bored from doing nothing. He fell asleep on the podium and only woke up when the host asked him to say a few words. The other participants were furious that Lin had reached the top without actually competing. One of them couldn't take it anymore, grabbed the microphone, and complained that the game was unfair. He demanded that everyone be treated equally and that every participant should compete. Because one participant withdrew, Lin was forced to enter the round. He didn't mind. He was tired of sitting around and wanted to test his abilities after his recent transformations. The crowd cheered for player number 88, Lei Dian, to give this white rabbit a real challenge. Lei Dian was a Thunder Awakener with 8 bronze stars. Confident, he told Lin that his lucky streak was over and that facing him would be very tough. Lei Dian promised to dominate Lin in the ring and leave him unable to recover quickly. The fight began. Lei Dian activated his strongest ability, but Lin carefully dodged the attack. Lei Dian was frustrated because the ability had a long recovery time. He then tried another move, a thunder technique, aiming to hit Lin. Lin knew that if the thunder connected, the damage would be huge. So he decided to strike first before Lei Dian had a chance to attack. To his own surprise, his speed was incredible. The host announced that contestant number 66 had defeated his opponent with a single move. Lei Dian couldn't believe it. He didn't understand how Lin had become so strong. Both spectators and participants were shocked at Lin's power. Wang, the vice president of Martial Arts University, was also watching and wasn't happy with Lin's victory. He observed closely and realized that Lin hadn't used any spiritual power in the strike. One vice president thought it was impossible for someone to deliver so much force without it. After thinking it over, Vice President Wang became very interested in Lin. The next day, Lin faced participant number 12, Shen Gui, who had awakened the physical power of a beast in the form of a wolf. Feeling his opponent's strong aura, Lin decided to enhance his own body. Seeing this, Shen Gui surrendered without even fighting. In the following matches, several other participants did the same, and Lin advanced without having to compete. He eventually reached the top 8 and earned the title Invincible. While resting, the system appeared and offered Lin a new ability. Today, he received mastery of any weapon. With this, he could accurately use bows, spears, and other weapons. During this break, Chin approached him and mentioned forming a team to explore the bronze spirit market over the holidays. Lin got curious and asked her more about it. She explained that after spiritual energy returned, countless spiritual markets reopened, filled with rare beasts and treasures. These beasts were valuable not just for their hides, but also for producing special spiritual orbs useful for cultivation. Lin liked the idea of finding rare treasures while having good company. Chin reassured him that safety wasn't an issue since 6 other people would be joining them. Lin accepted happily but asked who the other members were. Chin didn't reveal details and said she would contact him later. Lin suggested meeting first at a cafe to chat, and Chin told him to get ready for the game so he wouldn't embarrass himself in the ring. The final competition started, and Lin was set to face Chin. Even though he was technically part of her team, she had no plans to give him first place. Lin advised her to just admit defeat, but she insisted on winning. The host announced the start of the game. Chin mentioned that she had earned a black belt in wrestling a few years ago and was confident in her physical strength. Lin thought differently. He attacked, but Chin used a perfect hold, performing a maneuver that brought him down. Thanks to his body enhancement, Lin avoided taking serious damage. The fight had just started, and he still had a chance to turn things around, but all his attacks were blocked easily. One of her strikes even sent him to the ground. Chin told her teammate to surrender because Lin's skills were lacking, boasting that she hadn't even needed to use her best ability. Lin agreed that if the fight continued like this, he would lose. But he saw only one option. He asked the host to pause the match. Lin jumped out of the arena and grabbed a mop, asking the host if he could use it. The host had never seen anyone so bold. Chin couldn't understand why he would use a mop, but she knew the next fight would be intense and needed to be ready. Lin, however, considered the mop the perfect weapon. In his first attack, Chin noticed Lin's transformation as soon as he held the mop. He swung at her, hitting her side lightly. Using his body control ability, he struck again and again. Chin finally had to use her basic ability to create an icicle. Lin felt the cold and his body weakened slightly. If he hadn't enhanced his body earlier, he would have been knocked down. Chin used the cold to create an explosion where Lin stood and asked the host to announce her as the winner. As the host began to speak, Lin emerged from the dust, completely unharmed and ready to keep going. He transformed into his fighting rabbit form and launched another attack on Chin. Lin's strength was so great that he could break through Chin's ice armor. She refused to accept second place and kept fighting. As her energy ran low, she used a second-level breakthrough. Lin realized that one mistake could ruin everything. He asked the referee to stop the match and claimed foul play, saying that breaking through during a fight counted as cheating and didn't follow the rules. Chin noticed that her opponent wasn't attacking her despite her breakthrough. She found the gesture unexpectedly kind and felt a spark of admiration for Lin. Resolving the dispute, she told him to continue the battle fairly, but warned him to be careful. She was now much stronger. With the breakthrough, her speed and attack power had increased and Lin almost fell. His hands were cold from her ability and he began losing focus. Determined not to lose, Lin pushed himself to fight with everything he had. He activated his abilities and rushed at Chin. Seeing his determination, she realized she had underestimated him. Lin knocked her down with a single strike and managed to hold her in a grapple as they fell to the ground. Chin, noticing the strain, asked him kindly to release her and stop the fight. Lin refused, saying he wouldn't let go until she admitted defeat. He jokingly threatened to use a rabbit bite if she didn't give in. Chin decided to give him what he wanted, raising her hand to tell the host she was surrendering, lost consciousness, and fell to the ground. Soon, he regained consciousness, but was confused about who was calling him and where he was. Chin explained that he had overexerted himself and wasted too much energy in the fight. Suddenly, the girl screamed, asking Lin to remove his rabbit paws. Lin then realized it had all been a dream. He woke up in his own bed. The system appeared and gave him an enhanced beast ability, transforming his white rabbit form into a street rabbit. Lin was annoyed, but the system cheered him up, reminding him he hadn't gained any abilities during the day he missed in a coma. Curious, Lin asked the system for another ability. For the second time, he received a rank 300 ability called Cosmic Power Awakening. Since Lin already had similar powers, the system fused them successfully and congratulated him for becoming a B-level beast. This ability gave him many advantages, including a storage space in his stomach to keep anything he wanted. He also unlocked a new skill called Any Door, allowing him to teleport to any point within a 5-meter range in a few seconds. Lin decided to test it by moving downstairs. The ability worked perfectly, and he found himself next to the landlord's daughter, Lixu. Startled, she grabbed a knife, fearing him. Luckily, Lin quickly explained the situation and left safely. The next day, Lin went to meet Chin at a cafe. She had invited everyone so the team could meet the researchers ahead of time. Among the guests were an 8-star sound conqueror and a 9-star healer. She also introduced her friend to another teammate, Chung, a 9-star bronze fire master. 2 other members were supposed to join, but they were busy with university admissions. Lin mentioned that he had received several university invitations that morning. Universities he had never even dreamed of were now competing for him. Chin asked which one he would choose. Lin realized she was asking for a reason. She had probably planned everything long ago. He replied that for now, he was leaning toward a martial arts university. Chin said she planned to apply to the same one because she wasn't ready to accept losing to him. Lin felt motivated to fight for the goddess's sake. She brought up the purpose of today's meeting. They needed to locate a spiritual beast hiding in a certain area. These ice foxes usually live in groups, so she needed help from third parties. Chin thanked everyone for performing well in the exam and joining her team. The other team members felt lucky to have Lin on their side, thinking they could learn a lot from him. Chin announced that their mission would start in 3 days. On the day of departure, Lin summoned the system to gain a skill. The system teased him and gave him culinary mastery. It reassured him not to worry since he already had the spatial system. Lin remembered the space in his stomach and decided to test it. When he activated it, a huge backpack appeared in front of him. The assistant explained that Lin could carry the equivalent of an entire room. Looking out the window, Lin saw his teammates had arrived to pick him up. On the bus, the sound star was shocked to see Lin had a spatial system. The other team members stared too, making him feel a bit embarrassed. Chin explained that a spatial system was extremely rare and wondered how Lin had obtained it. When they arrived at the location, Lin saw a huge energy wall. No one knew exactly how these areas appeared, but they were thought to be linked to the restoration of spiritual energy. These places were home to animals of different species, and the strength of each creature depended on the level of the area. While spiritual beasts could enter the human world, they rarely did so on their own. People should respect them but not fear them. Whether bronze, silver, or gold level, all were monitored by government authorities as a safeguard between worlds. The team went to register, but the forms for that day were already closed. Chin went to complete the registration for the next day, while Lin headed toward the portal. Here, the aura felt much stronger than elsewhere. Ming approached him, asking what he was doing. She led Lin to a special spot because she wanted to examine his cosmic stomach. Meanwhile, Chin's group was being watched by outsiders who had mixed opinions about them. The next day, registration started again, and Chin's team stepped into the portal. Soon they found themselves in a spiritual space filled with spiritual beasts. Chin told her team they needed to cross the snowy fields, a journey that would take 2 days. She asked Ming to watch their surroundings. Ming used her sound radar and special echolocation ability like a bat to scout ahead. All preparations were complete, and Chin announced they were moving out. Unbeknownst to them, a subordinate from the Wolf Squad was already observing. Their leader, Yang Yu, had instructed his team not to attack openly. Their fun would begin when Chin's team entered the forest. This area had big-horned goats, low-level spiritual beasts that didn't like being attacked. Chin's team, however, recklessly used their abilities and accidentally burned some of the goats. Lin scolded them, pointing out that goat wool was very expensive. Ming excitedly reported she had managed to find 2 orbs without using abilities. Suddenly, Chin and Lin noticed wild wolves were watching them. Chin warned her team to stay alert and not trust stealth attacks. She explained that if the wolves sensed one of their pack was hurt or gone, the rest would grow stronger. Lin got curious and asked what would happen if their leader died. Chin explained that the wolf leader wouldn't be easy to defeat. Lin decided to take on the responsibility of finding the wolf leader. He asked his team to stay put while he used the portal to locate it. Soon he found the leader and attacked it with his mop. The wolf leader didn't expect such an attack and after a brief struggle was pinned down. Its subordinates were left confused and didn't know where to go. Because of this, Lin earned even more respect from his team. He suggested searching the wolf for useful items and discovered a golden orb with a hidden ability. He gave it to a teammate to analyze. Lin mentioned that the orb was very valuable and his teammate promised to transfer money to him as thanks once they returned. After handling the wolf leader, Chin's team felt confident about their mission. Then he summoned the system to get a new skill. The system congratulated him on receiving another physical enhancement. Lin wasn't excited at first since he'd received this ability before, but suddenly his clothes tore as his muscles grew. He joked that his friends should take a break while he fixed his outfit. With this enhancement, his strength was now equal to a 6-star silver awakened warrior. Night fell, and the team set up camp and lit a fire. Ming noticed someone following them. After watching carefully, she realized another team was trailing them and suggested keeping their distance. Chin explained that illegal groups sometimes hunt people like them. These groups are hard to track since they leave no trace after finishing their targets. She suspected this team had been watching them since they entered the forest. Lin offered to protect everyone, but Chin insisted it wasn't necessary. Everyone in the team was strong enough to handle the enemy. The next morning, Lin started by learning a new taming skill. Before he could fully focus, he heard Ming calling him. When he stepped out of the tent, he saw a huge snake. The system explained it was a swift cobra, extremely fast, venomous, and very hard to tame. Thanks to his new taming skill, Lin could now receive information about certain creatures. Lin ran to warn his teammates about the snake's close-range attack, but it was already too late. One of the snakes sprayed venom toward the team. Some participants decided to follow Lin's advice and attacked together, but their strikes didn't hurt the snake. Only Chin's ice ability could pierce the snake's armor and draw blood. When Lin was ready to deliver the final blow, the fat teammate noticed something moving inside the snake. Lin examined it carefully and told everyone to stay alert. He cut open the snake and discovered a pair of eyes, a docile mole that was familiar with the ground. Alongside it, several orbs were hidden inside the snake. The mole clearly wanted the orbs in Lin's hands. Finally, the mole jumped on Lin and grabbed one orb. Lin used his skill to create an explosion, scaring it off. Suddenly, Chin said she heard voices, and Ming sensed they were surrounded by a group of spiritual beasts. Many of them. Dozens of moles appeared, each holding orbs in their paws. All the moles ran to Lin and offered the orbs. Lin understood that this was their way of thanking him for the 2 earthly orbs he had given earlier. As a result, Chin's team ended up with 213 spiritual orbs, including magical ones. Unfortunately, none of the rare or earthly orbs survived. Since the moles had already taken them, Lin decided to accept the mole's offer without hesitation. Chin suggested he try to absorb the orbs. Lin had never done this before but followed her advice. He absorbed 1 orb, earning 3 bronze stars and even achieving a breakthrough. Chin congratulated him and noted that the team's overall strength had grown significantly. Lin tamed the mole and told it to follow the team. Meanwhile, Chin's team was being secretly watched by a group of hooligans. Their leader asked why they hadn't attacked yet. He replied that they needed to let the team go deeper into the forest first, trusting his men to handle them when the time was right. That afternoon, Chin's team returned to camp and lit a fire. The mole helped set up the stakes. Lin asked his team to leave the area safely, then poured venom on the ground to prevent anyone from leaving. He instructed the moles to stay alert and not let other spiritual beasts interfere. Chin announced that all the traps were in place and that an attack could be expected. Ming shared some important news. The group they were watching had stopped half a kilometer away. She had overheard their conversation and learned that an attack was planned for that night. She also discovered that their opponents included several silver-level fighters. Lin noticed that everyone on the team was nervous, which was only making things worse. He didn't hold back and told his teammates they were acting all wrong. He asked them to stay calm, reminding them that they could handle anyone who attacked. Taking charge, he divided the team into roles. He promised Chin that she could always rely on him. Hearing this, Chin felt moved and fell for Lin even more. Night fell and a group of bandits prepared to strike. At first, there were only 3 of them, but they were well armed. The wolf leader also organized his group, and more people joined them. At the leader's command, they charged toward Chin's team, aiming to surround them. But one bandit suspected something and fell into a trap, getting caught by the stakes the moles had set. This almost shocked the wolf leader, who ordered his team to retreat to avoid the traps. Thanks to the traps, 2 of the bandits were neutralized. One fell into a pit and was pierced by a spear coated with venom. Lin stepped out of the tent and scolded them for making noise at night. The wolf leader couldn't understand how he and his team, after chasing others all day, had become the ones in danger. He didn't care about Chin's team's level. He assumed they would all fail. Lin, however, calmly said it was still to be seen who would have the upper hand tonight. He activated his prepared skills and told his teammates to advance. His 2 companions with fireball and thunder skills were ready to face the attackers. By the time the wolf leader realized they were being ambushed, it was too late. Chin used an ice mark to freeze the bandits in place. While they were immobilized, a massive fireball engulfed them. The leader saw that one of his subordinates was already neutralized, but still trusted his team to put up a fight. All the bandits were silver level, radiating a strong aura that even made Chin feel tense. To stay in the right, the team knew they were simply defending themselves. Chin decided to take the lead against the wolf leader. Lin asked her to slow down and trust him. She realized fear still held her back, but she insisted on moving forward her way. Lin promised to support her as quickly as possible. He asked Ming to secure a safe spot and the rest of the team to cover her. Lin stepped forward before the remaining bandits could react, but they didn't see him as a real threat. They launched attacks using their special skills, but Lin warned them to be careful. In the next moment, they were thrown a good distance away from him. When they landed, Lin teased them, saying they hadn't even used 10% of their strength in the attack. Lin's team realized they were probably going to win. Meanwhile, Chin attacked the group leader. Seeing her in danger, Lin rushed to help, pulling her out of the leader's grasp. He noticed the rest of the group was already neutralized. When Lin tried attacking the leader with just a stick, the leader countered immediately with a whip. Lin realized he had underestimated the skills of silver-level fighters and needed a smarter strategy. He decided to use a special skill through his portal. Suddenly, the leader noticed that all his opponents had vanished. This was Lin using his ability to move 5 meters instantly. When the leader reacted, he used another skill, but Lin ordered his teammates to start their attack. Chin used her reliable ice freezing skill. Another teammate launched a fireball, and a lightning attack appeared in the area. Combining their powers, Chin's team successfully pushed back the leader. He was sent flying backward and lost consciousness from the impact. The fat man checked him and confirmed he was still alive. Lin explained to his team that finishing fights like this was normal in these areas because of the laws of the spiritual beasts. He said their group's purpose was to stop crime and chaos. After the battle, he suggested resting, but first considered handling the remaining threats. In the end, he decided to simply change the location and sent the team to sleep while he and the fat man stayed to guard the camp. Chin stepped out of the tent and asked the fat man to head to bed, explaining she needed to talk to Lin privately. Lin felt embarrassed because he also had feelings for her and was nervous about the conversation. Chin started by saying she found Lin attractive and fell completely for him. When he took charge and helped deal with the group, without thinking, Lin took her hands and asked if she had a boyfriend, which embarrassed Chin. Lin quickly tried to explain, saying he didn't want her praise to feel like pity. Chin said her ideal partner should be stronger and cooler than her in every way. She mentioned that the exam results would soon arrive, revealing who was truly number 1. Previously, Lin hadn't planned on taking the university entrance exam, but now, challenged by Chin, he agreed. He told her that if he passed the test, she would become his girlfriend. At that moment, other team members came out to offer to take over the guard. They didn't understand why their commander seemed flustered after talking with Lin. The next day, after resting, Lin summoned the system to gain a new skill. This time, he received an aura enhancement skill. With this ability, his breakthrough level increased by 2 ranks at once. Lin hoped to soon reach silver and then gold. When he stepped out of the tent, everyone noticed a change in his aura. The fat man was the first to see that Lin had reached a 5-star bronze breakthrough. Lin explained that he had advanced so quickly because he gained a huge amount of experience the previous day. Suddenly, Ming warned that a large group was running toward them, and they needed to prepare for defense. Thanks to his skills, Lin quickly learned that these attackers would be extremely difficult to tame. On top of that, they were a serious threat, especially toward the girls. Lin took command and ordered his teammates to protect them. He explained that these creatures were dangerous in that way, so the girls had to stay safe. The team tried to run, but they soon realized they didn't have enough strength to escape. One of the team members said they had to face this as true heroes. Lin agreed and grabbed his only weapon. Chin asked him to promise that he would protect her at all costs. She was willing to risk everything rather than fall into the hands of these creatures. Lin reassured everyone that they would be fine. He charged at the attackers who had already targeted Chin. Lin fought hard, but they gradually started surrounding him. One of the creatures got dangerously close to Chin, and Lin managed to come to her aid, neutralizing it. During the fight, he injured his shoulder and got a bleeding wound. Ming and Chin were ready to step in to help him. Thanks to their teamwork, they managed to push back the attackers. Suddenly, using her skill, Ming pretended a pack of animals was approaching, but it was really another group of these creatures led by a powerful leader. Lin realized the fight would be tough because the team was already exhausted. Ming started crying, scared for her life. The fat man stepped up, ready to protect her. He didn't want her to be harmed, so he called for backup. Suddenly, a stranger with a strong aura appeared nearby. Lin recognized him as Jiaoxi, a gold-level awakened fighter with the abilities of an orangutan. San asked Jiaoxi for help to finish the creatures. Jiaoxi immediately showed incredible strength, impressing everyone. The fat man proudly confirmed that Jiaoxi was truly gold-level. San directed Jiaoxi where to attack. From the first move, it was clear Jiaoxi was far stronger than the creatures. The subordinates of the enemy leader panicked, ready to send their leader into battle, but their leader suddenly fell next to them. With their leader gone, the remaining attackers fled. Lin was amazed and a little intimidated by Jiaoxi's gold-level power. Jiaoxi told San the mission was complete and left. The team realized that he had been watching from the side the whole time. They thought that if they had known someone so powerful was there, they might have handled the fight differently. The team's recent experiences had strengthened them a lot, filling them with spiritual energy. Thanks to this, all the members except Lin were able to gain extra breakthrough stars. Lin decided to try it himself and felt an incredible flow of energy coursing through him. Lin found a silver-level spiritual orb with the roar of a lion that could immobilize an enemy for a few seconds. He decided to give this rare orb to the fat man. San hinted that with this orb, he could show his affection for Ming, the girl he loved. In return for the gift, San promised to thank Lin with 2 million when they got back. He wanted Ming to be his, and after their return, she indeed became his wife. Suddenly, Ming approached the young men and asked what they were doing. Seeing San confused, Lin decided to help. He nudged San toward Ming and encouraged him to give her the orb as a gift. Using the silver orb with the system's sound skill, Ming melted and fell in love with San. Chin ended this little love story and told everyone to pack their things so they could keep moving. Soon, they reached the edge of the forest and snowy mountains and decided to stop there for the night. Lin took some time to think about his relationship with Chin. After a night passed, Lin used his assistant to acquire a new aiming skill. He felt a little disappointed because the skill seemed useless, so he decided to cheer himself up with something sweet. San thanked him for his help earlier and gave him a jar of honey. Suddenly, a huge white predator grabbed the jar. Lin scanned it and discovered it was a snow bear, a silver-level spiritual beast. Ming quickly tried to save everyone by using her lion roar skill, and the others joined in with their best abilities. In seconds, the snow bear was taken down. Chin announced that today they should reach their destination, the fox den. Lin checked the bear's body for spiritual orbs, but decided it wasn't worth the effort and threw it into his spatial storage. 3 hours later, the map showed that the team was close to a trench. Ming used her skill to sense that there were moles nearby and 2 snow foxes. At the same time, a small snow fox cub ran toward them. Lin learned that the cub could be tamed easily, and that it was important not to harm its family. He was curious to see what Chin would do, since she had come for a snow fox orb, but had grown fond of the cub. Lin explained that it wouldn't be hard for her to take the orb if she wanted, but she gently released the fox, saying she didn't want to be like people who harm animals for personal reasons. For now, she was happy just to meet such a cute creature. She told her team to prepare to leave, but suddenly danger appeared. 2 huge snow foxes showed up, acting aggressively. They thought the young people were trying to take their cub. Fortunately, the little fox ran to its parents and managed to explain the situation. The adult foxes calmed down. Lin then approached the adult foxes and explained that he needed the same orb the cub had. He offered to help them fight off enemies in exchange for the orb. The foxes told Lin that they had been chased by a snow bear and couldn't handle it on their own. Lin took the bear's body out of his bag, and the foxes thanked him for his help. As a reward, they gave him 2 orbs he needed. With these orbs, Chin could learn a new skill. She immediately absorbed one of the orbs and gained the power she needed. When she tested her strength, her attack was much stronger than before. Lin realized that he would probably never surpass Chin now. The team took a photo to remember the moment and decided to head back. 3 days after the expedition, Lin received all the funds for the orbs he had collected, and the total income from the trip exceeded 10 million yuan. If Lin managed to get first place in the exam, he could fulfill all of Qin's requests. Lin summoned the system and asked for a new skill. This time, he acquired the skill of clairvoyance, which he could use in the exam. He also decided to use it to monitor Qin's safety. A month later, it was revealed that Qin's team was the only one to pass the exam. Ming hoped to be among the top 10 participants. When the results came in, Qin got angry because Lin had taken first place. She couldn't understand how he had scored the maximum in every subject. Swallowing her pride, Qin admitted defeat and acknowledged that Lin was smarter than her. On top of that, Lin showed her that he had a huge sum of money and could even become her fiancé. Unfortunately, Qin pushed him away, meaning Lin still had a long way to go to win her heart. The team said their goodbyes and promised to meet again in 2 weeks. The day before their trip, Lin felt uneasy about leaving his house. Then he acquired a new skill for increasing spiritual energy. He decided not to use it right away, wanting to test how far he could push himself naturally. He absorbed orb after orb and ran an experiment. He managed to reach a breakthrough of 9 bronze stars. Then, using the boost from today's skill, he reached a silver star. As a reward, the system gave him a teleportation skill, which allowed him to absorb objects from a distance. Lin tried using it, but exhausted all his accumulated energy in a single attempt. The system warned that he would need a lot of practice to master the skill. The next day, Qin came to visit, and Lin's door was open. Inside, she saw a note and an envelope on the table. The note said that Lin was going to study in Shanghai, and the envelope contained a large sum of money that he had won, but it hadn't been from Qin. It was from Lin's sister. At that moment, Lin and his friends were on their way to school when his sister Xiao called him, telling him to come back home. Lin managed to explain to her that he had earned the money honestly. By the end of their conversation, Xiao asked him that if he ever found a girlfriend, he should bring her home to meet the family. When the group arrived at the school, they had to get out of the car. At the station, they were welcomed by the university director, Chen. At first, he praised Lin's skills, which he had seen in recordings of his previous battles. When he noticed that Lin had reached the silver level, he asked him to come to his office later. Lin was shocked. He had just arrived, and now his superiors already wanted to see him. The male and female students lived in separate areas. Before heading to the director's office, Lin decided to learn a new skill. He gained another physical enhancement, rank C, which made his physical strength equivalent to 2 golden stars. In the future, once he reached the gold level, any physical enhancement would be rank 200. At the director's office, the conversation started with class divisions. There were 7 levels: bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, myth, and legend. Remembering that Lin was part beast, the director asked if he had encountered anything unusual. Lin assumed the director knew about the system, but it turned out he didn't. He simply couldn't understand how such a simple person could reach silver in just a few days. Lin panicked a little and quickly came up with a story, saying he reached silver through the spiritual realms. The director then asked about the number of skills Lin had, and without thinking, he said 7. The director got upset, saying that a rabbit so ordinary shouldn't have so many skills. Lin calmed him down, explaining that his body had evolved and he could now use the spatial system. He proved this by showing the suitcase in his chest. According to the director, only one person in the country had mastered this system, Chief J. He asked Lin to keep his skills and spatial system a secret from his friends. Suddenly, the director asked Lin to hit him with his maximum strength. In the last competition, he had noticed Lin's power and wanted to test it himself. Lin apologized in advance and struck the director in the chest. The director realized that Lin's physical strength had reached the gold level. Thanks to Lin's strength, the director found the best place for him in the future and suggested that he participate in a competition far bigger than the usual school contests. The main prize was 5 million, but Lin only wanted to defend the academy's honor. Back in his dorm, Lin met his new neighbors. One of them was a strange young man with green hair named Hong, who had 9 bronze stars. Hong suggested that the neighbors share responsibilities and start living together. At that moment, everyone was called to a scheduled meeting. When they arrived, several dozen people were already seated. Lin's group started meeting their new classmates, but most of them were pretty unfriendly. Their instructor was Han Junning, a rare 9-tailed fox with 8 platinum stars. Han introduced herself as the class consultant and said that anyone could come to her with questions. She asked all the students to get to know each other and then select a class leader. The first to step forward was Fadian, a silver-level healer who admitted he liked Ming. Lin then introduced himself as a silver-awakened rabbit. Han noted that everyone already knew Lin because of the previous competition, which caused the other students to whisper. They couldn't believe a rabbit would be in their class. After the meeting, Han suggested choosing a class leader. She picked several silver-level candidates who had scored more than 700 points. The list included Qin, Lin, Yang, and Sima. Han then announced a mini-battle where each candidate would introduce themselves. Sima said he was a 2-star silver beast in the form of an eagle and wanted to be class leader so their class could be the best in the academy. Next, Lin spoke. He wasn't interested in being leader, so he told everyone not to vote for him and suggested they give their votes to Qin. Qin humbly asked the students to vote for her. Finally, Yang spoke. Yang was a 3-star silver fire-awakened student. All the male students immediately liked her and were ready to give her votes. It was clear the election would come down to the 2 girls. When the votes were counted, Han announced that Qin had won, and everyone applauded. Yang, the vice director, was angry about losing. Han then explained the military-style training, which was harder than the usual training. Students who didn't complete it would be expelled. The trainers were experienced special forces combatants. During the consultation, Yang noticed Lin's appeal and decided to start a conversation with him. A few days later, the first day of military training arrived. All the students saw enormous eagles flying in the sky, each carrying special forces combatants on their backs. The leader announced the start of the first day of military training. The head of the military training introduced himself as Lin Chong. He admitted honestly that he didn't really want to teach this difficult task to the newcomers. Still, he and his soldiers followed orders and began preparing. A 3-star gold instructor approached Lin and introduced himself as Qin Ming. To start, the instructor told the students to run 10 laps. Anyone who used any extra force would get a penalty of 5 more laps. Qin Ming said that anyone who couldn't finish 10 laps wouldn't get lunch. After 5 laps, some students were already falling behind. Qin Ming could easily see each student's physical condition by their running pace. Of all the students, the one who impressed him the most was Lin. Even though Lin was only silver level, he managed to run ahead of everyone. Lin noticed that his friend Qin was tired and running with all her strength. He decided to slow down and wait for her. He offered to help and said they could finish together. Qin refused, so Yang approached Lin with the same offer. Lin politely refused because Qin was extremely jealous. After the last lap, Lin finished first. Right at the finish line, Sima tried to pass him but failed. The instructor praised Lin for his endurance and asked his name. Lin immediately realized he had made a mistake. Finishing first meant the instructor would now watch him closely as the top student. Sima promised that next time he wouldn't let Lin take first place. He challenged Lin, saying that a brave eagle would never surrender to a weak rabbit. The instructor then gathered all the students and announced the next test, 5 sets of 100 push-ups. After watching the running, he already had a clear idea of each student's strength and expected Lin to excel. The students and soldiers started doing push-ups. Sima was confident he would beat Lin in this challenge, but when he looked at Lin, Lin was already doing extra push-ups. Lin decided not to hold back, knowing the instructor had already noticed him. During the push-ups, the instructor realized Lin was the best among all the students. Lin and Qin worked extremely well on this task, while Sima and the others struggled. With that, the morning training ended, and the students were told to return in 2 hours. Sima wasn't happy about this, and the instructor gave him a chance to challenge him in the afternoon. An instructor could reduce their strength to match a student's level for a challenge. Lin liked this idea and wanted to challenge the instructor as well. He asked if he could use a weapon, and the instructor asked what kind. Lin said he would like to use one, but the instructor didn't approve. The instructor ended the discussion with the students and officially concluded the morning training. All the training sessions were recorded, and the professors chose Lin as their favorite. The director said he had personally selected a few students who needed more intensive training. He asked the Eagle leader why he hadn't healed the wound on his face, and the leader said he would do it once they found the person responsible. He kept the wound as a reminder of the pain he had gone through. He already had a few ideas about how to find the culprit, and now all that remained was to wait. During lunch, Lin began looking for a suitable weapon. He decided to rely on his old weapon, which had never failed him. Suddenly, he received an offer to use a golden spear made from a very rare alloy. The fat man, with help from his assistant, prepared the new weapon for Lin. After the break, the battle between the instructor and Sima began. Sima was confident he would win easily against the instructor. He promised that during the fight he would transform into a human beast form. Using his skills, Sima could become a huge eagle. The instructor, however, strengthened his defense and countered Sima's attack. Qin Ming had a rare metal awakening, so it was no surprise that he handled the challenge with ease. No one could break through his metal armor. It turned out that Sima's spiritual power wasn't enough to win the fight. Without hesitation, he accepted his defeat and decided to surrender. Qin Ming then invited other students to take on the challenge. Yang, who controls fire, stepped forward to compete with the instructor. When Qin Ming accepted her challenge, Yang focused her power on fire. The instructor noticed she had more abilities than just that skill. The girl apologized in advance and launched a jet of fire at Qin Ming. The fire was strong enough to penetrate Qin Ming's armor and burn his body. The instructor had to use part of his own energy to create a massive steel barrier. It took a lot of effort to withstand the heat, which was around 1,000 degrees. But suddenly Yang ran out of energy and accepted her defeat. Despite this, the instructor praised her for her skills. Next up was Qin, who had 4 stars in ice elemental power. When her fight began, she used her ice arrow skill. The instructor was pleasantly surprised to see that his students kept getting stronger and stronger. To counter Qin's skills, Qin Ming had to cover his entire body with metal. When he tried to attack her up close, arrows of ice flew at him. Qin managed to pierce through Qin Ming's metal defense and freeze him with her cold attack. The main character watched and felt proud to have such a strong girl in the team. Suddenly, Qin had to surrender because her spiritual energy was completely drained. The tired instructor asked if any other students wanted to try. Lin, who had a silver star, stepped forward. His strength was what interested Qin Ming the most. Suddenly, the squad leader stepped in, insisting that the instructor restore all his energy and fight at full power. He warned that if Qin Ming didn't, he would lose against this student. The other students didn't understand the fuss, since none of them thought they could beat Qin Ming. Qin Ming began restoring his energy, while the squad leader spoke to Lin. He explained that his master knew about Lin, and Lin assumed he meant the space outer. After learning more, the leader asked Lin to teach Qin Ming a lesson because he had become arrogant. Lin Chong told Qin Ming that if he lost, he would have to do 500 push-ups. Lin didn't like this, as he preferred staying in the shadows and avoiding fame. Qin Ming started the fight and asked Lin to transform into a beast. Lin apologized and said his power didn't rely on transformation. The instructor found this bold and was angry, thinking beast power should come from transformation. He launched the first attack at Lin. Lin noticed that Qin Ming hadn't trained much and relied only on his own skills. Qin Ming made a few clumsy moves, dodging some blows, but he couldn't be called professional. Still, his attacks were strong and could only be countered if he made a mistake. Lin threw his weapon at Qin Ming, catching him off guard and sending him flying. When Qin Ming hit the ground, Lin Chong laughed, feeling vindicated. Everyone realized that Lin's physical strength had reached gold level. Qin Ming understood that he could never surpass this white rabbit in skill, and realized he wanted someone that strong on his side. The students cheered for Lin, wishing him success. Lin himself didn't understand why his single attack had unsettled the instructor. Qin Ming got up, determined not to let Lin get too arrogant, and created an energy dagger with his skills. The main character realized that this battle wasn't really about weapons, but about skills and technique. Lin Chong noticed that the instructor had become more serious, and each of his weapons had its own strengths and weaknesses. The spear was great for long-range attacks, letting him fight without close contact, but it was tricky in close combat. The instructor's dagger, on the other hand, was perfect for close-range fighting but weak at a distance. Lin Chong found it interesting to watch the two fighters go head-to-head. He thought Qin Ming was strong mainly because he could handle multiple weapons and had a solid metal defense. When the instructor got close, Lin switched his spear into 2 daggers. Qin Ming was grateful that Lin had advised him to restore his energy. Otherwise, he might have lost. Lin attacked again, sending the instructor flying. Qin Ming couldn't understand how someone awakened to a beast could have so much power. Lin was getting tired since the fight had lasted a long time. He hinted that Qin Ming could choose to continue or stop, but Qin Ming didn't know how it would end. Lin openly suggested that the fight could end in a tie since they were equally strong. When Qin Ming agreed, Lin told him that at the end, Qin Ming would be the true winner. The instructor admitted that he hadn't held back his skills and considered Lin the winner, letting him skip the rest of the training. Sima felt a mix of jealousy and envy. Qin Ming then told the other students that they had to run 10 more laps, or they'd skip dinner. The fat man felt upset since he couldn't be without Lin. Lin wished him luck, and was then approached by Lin Chong, who suggested taking advantage of free time to go for a walk with him. Lin was alarmed, unsure what Lin Chong meant. He said he had important things to do, which angered Lin Chong. Then the instructor said he wanted to fly with Lin on his eagle. With a wave of his hand, an eagle landed nearby. Lin jokingly suggested the eagles could serve as chicks. Lin noticed some problems with their diet. He pointed out that eagles in the detachment barely live 50 years, and in the wild, rarely over 100. He was surprised at how much this student knew about the birds. Thanks to his resurrection skill, Lin's Beastmaster ability rose to expert level. The instructor asked Lin for help handling the eagle and invited him to go along. Lin was worried about missing classes, but Lin Chong took care of everything, calling the director to grant Lin a full day off. Refusing wasn't an option, or he'd be marked absent and could be expelled. So the young men climbed onto the eagle and prepared to leave. Lin Chong showed the newcomer the secret base from above, and after some time they landed. They were greeted by the chief of staff of the Beast Transformation Department. When they returned early, Lin Chong said he had brought a real treasure and pointed to Lin. The main character felt a little embarrassed and asked the instructor to explain. Lin Chong told his assistant that he had brought Lin here to introduce him to the team leader. They walked along a long wooden bridge and arrived at an enormous stone wall. Lin felt a bit uneasy. Lin Chong pressed a secret button and the wall slid open. revealing a door. Lin admitted that all this modern technology was intimidating. Lin Chong invited him inside, warning that even more surprising things awaited. For Lin, it was a completely different world from the outside. He saw lab assistants taking care of the bird's health, and besides the eagles, the lab was filled with spiritual beasts. Lin noticed that some animals weren't being fed properly. Lin Chong thought that since Lin wasn't afraid to point out problems, it would be easy to fix them with his help. Lin Chong told Lin to stay calm because he hadn't yet been introduced to the manager. When the manager didn't open the door, Lin Chong knocked it down easily. Inside, they saw a fragile girl lost in deep thought. The main task of the squad was to awaken her. Lin Chong explained that she was Shen Xing, a gold-level demon awakener with an 8-star awakening. At first, Lin had thought demons didn't exist, but Lin Chong told him otherwise. There's a type of awakening as rare as Lin's spatial system, and Lin Chong had known all along that Lin possessed it. He asked Lin to step aside while he awakened Shen Xing, warning that she could enter a dangerous state if disturbed. As soon as he touched her shoulder, Shen Xing grabbed her weapon and opened fire. Lin Chong had to dodge the bullets. Lin thought the leader was taking extreme risks, but the girl eventually ran out of ammo. Then she began transforming into a demon and launched an attack. Without hesitation, Lin Chong used his stone wall skill, but for Shen Xing the wall was no obstacle. She shattered it instantly. Lin Chong used his stone skin technique and realized that she was close to 9 stars. Her attacks were so strong that even he, with 3 layers of defense, struggled to match her. Moments later, he called Lin for help. Lin rushed over but got distracted by the firebird's parameters. He noticed an error that could cause the bird to be born with defects. Lin immediately reported it to Lin Chong and explained how to fix it, which calmed Shen Xing. The horns on her head disappeared, and she turned toward them. She explained that she had been incubating firebirds for a long time, but couldn't find the mistake. Lin Chong felt a little offended, thinking that she had awakened so easily while he had endured years of training. He told her that he had brought in an expert in spiritual beasts to solve the problem. The girl laughed, skeptical that someone so young could be an expert. Lin then explained that the problem was with the parameters she set. The incubator was too cold. Fire elemental spiritual beasts need heat, usually provided by the mother bird breathing fire on the egg to speed up hatching. Besides temperature, spiritual energy is needed for the chick to be born. Lin suggested placing several spiritual spheres near the egg so the chick could absorb the energy it needed on its own. Shen Xing had seen birds use fire to incubate their eggs before, but this was the first time she'd heard about spiritual realms. The main character decided to test her knowledge and asked what the main differences were between their habitat and our reality. The girl didn't have an answer, so Lin explained that the main difference was the aura. Hearing this, Shen Xing was impressed and admired Lin for a moment, confirming that he was a true professional. She asked him for help to create new life, saying that if he could hatch these chicks, she would recognize his talent. Lin decided to decline politely, saying there were more important things to focus on right now. He took her hand and asked her to follow him. Suddenly, important instructions were being announced across the lab. Lin spoke to everyone, offering some tips on mistakes in feeding the chicks. The lab technicians were angry and said they were experienced specialists who didn't need his advice. According to them, no outsider had the right to interfere in their work. Lin Chong scolded his men and told them to behave properly. To gain their trust, Lin decided to demonstrate his advice in action. He asked to borrow an eagle from the instructor. One of the experts protested, saying that spiritual beasts were precious and shouldn't be handled casually. Lin Chong realized the team didn't want to cooperate because it was their first time seeing Lin. He ordered them to open the doors and release his personal eagle. The experts tried to convince him not to, but Lin Chong said he trusted Lin and insisted on letting the eagle in. A few minutes later, the commander's eagle was in the lab. Lin said he also needed wake-up medicine, alcohol, painkillers, and a scalpel. The specialist protested again, reminding them that this bird was a gold-level eagle. Lin Chong told his subordinates to stay calm, explaining that they were dealing with a real healer. Lin took responsibility and asked his assistants to follow him. Thanks to his taming skill, Lin had a good understanding of spiritual beasts. He knew exactly where to touch the eagle's head to show that he was friendly. When Lin petted the eagle, everyone noticed it responded positively. Lin Chong could see how Lin had managed to tame such a proud eagle so quickly. The eagle lay down calmly, and Lin prepared it for the next step. He asked for a painkiller, and everyone nervously watched as Lin carefully inserted a large syringe into the eagle's body. When the main character asked to pour a cup of boiling water near the eagle's belly, Lin Chong got alarmed. Then Lin began plucking feathers from the eagle. Finally, it was time for the scalpel. The lab assistant and Lin Chong were worried, but Lin asked them to trust him until the process was done. Lin Chong asked his assistant to bring the necessary tools and the scalpel. Lin started the operation, and the assistant closed his eyes in fear. He found a layer of fat the size of an egg inside the eagle. With the assistant's help, he carefully removed the excess fat, which helped the eagle. After that, Lin asked the assistant to activate the healing skills. After the operation, Lin explained to Lin Chong that the Thunder Eagle didn't need so much fat because it hadn't had chicks yet. Removing the extra fat would make the bird stronger and ready for new life. He also suggested that in the future, the eagle's diet should be switched to leaner meats like beef or lamb to prevent excess fat. While Lin Chong was considering his advice, Shen Xing noticed something. The eagle stood up and began looking for its small fat piece, signaling in its own way that it was no longer a little bird but a proud, mature one. Its height had sharply increased to 15 meters. Lin told Lin Chong that the eagle wanted to fly with him. At this point, both Lin Chong and his assistants were convinced they were dealing with a true expert in spiritual beasts. Lin promised to point out mistakes that needed fixing, so the team's strength could reach a whole new level. After giving some advice, Lin Chong sent Lin to rest. While talking with the scientists, Lin didn't even notice that night had fallen. As he was about to fall asleep, he felt Shen Xing approaching his bed. Lin thought she might be trying to seduce him, but she actually came to show him the success of the firebird hatching. She said she had followed his advice and used the golden spiritual spheres. Lin was happy to hear this and asked her not to disturb his sleep. Shen Xing then said she wanted to become his disciple, so he could teach her all the nuances. Lin was cautious about rejecting her because she carried the energy of a demon. That night, he showed Shen Xing the door and told her that classes would start the next day. The following morning, Lin woke up to see the instructor on a flight with a beautiful companion. Shen Xing immediately approached him to talk about classes. Lin wasn't sure exactly how to teach her, so he decided the training would be done in a question and answer format. The girl mentioned that they had found iceberg eggs, but the hatching hadn't been successful. Lin explained that the key was to control the incubator temperature, so it didn't rise above 0. Lin felt a bit stressed about this training, but at least he had arrived at the lab. The lab technicians greeted him warmly and immediately asked him to check another eagle for feeding mistakes. Lin had been feeling exhausted from teaching over the past few days. While resting in his room, he heard a strange noise calling him to the square. Lin got nervous, thinking something bad might have happened. Shen Xing said that her captain had returned, and right after that, the alarm went off. The captain of the unit gathered all his team to deliver an urgent message. Captain Chow, who has 8 diamond stars, explained that a few days ago, a transnational criminal group had appeared in the country. After several days of surveillance, the commander located their hideout. Captain Chow decided to select the 10 best members and form a special mission team. He also mentioned that he knew a certain Lin was among his subordinates. The main character raised his hand and introduced himself to Captain Chow. At first, the captain thought he was just a kid, but Shen Xing confirmed that Lin was an expert. Shen Xing listed all of Lin's achievements and impressed the captain. Chow was hesitant to include someone like him on such a dangerous mission, fearing something might go wrong. Lin volunteered, taking full responsibility for any consequences. Shen Xing asked the captain to allow Lin to go, promising to defend him if needed. Lin knew the mission could be risky, but he was determined to take it on. Chow gave Lin the information he needed to study and asked him to prepare for departure. Soon, Lin, along with Shen Xing, boarded a Thunder Eagle. Lin learned that the leader of the criminal group was a dangerous man with 8 platinum stars. The leader's subordinates were responsible for mass crimes and were on the run. Lin's team was tasked with taking on a group of mercenaries who committed crimes like arson, robberies, and other serious offenses. Shen Xing explained that the problem was these criminals often operated in crowded areas, so mistakes could hurt innocent people. Additionally, the group had an explosives expert, making it ideal if Shen Xing's team included someone with a spatial system awakening. Soon, Shen Xing received an important call and said they had arrived at the target location, a simple border village. Lin Chong met them there and explained that he had discovered the group by chance while on an eagle reconnaissance. He had to monitor them for days, which made it impossible to communicate with his team. It turned out the criminal had been misleading Lin Chong for several days and wasn't at the expected location. Fortunately, the instructor discovered that the criminal had returned to his hideout in a hotel. Lin Chong advised Lin not to look worried because they were probably being followed. The leader then ordered the team to rest and gather strength for the next move. The next day, Shen Xing reported that she had followed the criminal all night, but he had only gone to a nearby store. Lin suggested that Shen Xing go for a walk to get a closer look. The girl said she didn't have suitable clothes, so the hero pulled something appropriate from his backpack. Shen Xing took the clothes and decided to follow the criminal outside. As they walked through the streets, Lin gradually started to develop feelings for her. They arrived at the target location, but a sniper was already watching. Using his skills, Lin sensed the sniper and warned Shen Xing to distract him. Lin decided to play a little trick and started teasing Shen Xing. When they got to the hotel, they said they couldn't wait any longer and needed a room on the 3rd floor. The administrator gave them a room on the 4th floor instead, which actually worked to their advantage. She asked for their ID cards, but Shen Xing had forgotten hers at home. Lin apologized and jokingly said it was hard for him to resist such beauty. The administrator still refused, so they ended up offering a bribe. It worked, and Lin and Shen Xing went to their room. The The room was well soundproofed, so Lin couldn't pick up any signals to wiretap, but he still caught a wave and heard a female voice. Shenxing and Lin realized it was an intimate conversation. They switched to another channel and caught an angry discussion. Shenxing couldn't understand everything, even though she knew 8 languages, but luckily, Lin understood all human languages on Earth. Lin caught 3 key points from the conversation. First, these people weren't acting on their own. They were hired by someone. Second, they needed to transport something out of country N. Third, they had prepared a large amount of explosives which could cause major problems if not handled. The heroes realized that someone 3 times stronger than these criminals was controlling them. The criminals also mentioned they needed a day to move the goods out of the country. The leader of the group told his team that tomorrow they would start an important mission, and if they succeeded, they wouldn't have to worry about money for the rest of their lives. Suddenly, Shenxing got a call from the captain, and it wasn't good news. She answered and asked what was going on. The captain explained that they had fallen into a trap and lost whatever they were supposed to protect. Lin realized this was probably connected to the conversation they had just overheard. He told the captain that a group of mercenaries would be moving the goods tomorrow, which might be what was lost. The captain warned them to be careful, saying that things could get dangerous if the group discovered them. He added that he would send a support team to Shenxing and Lin. He also explained that what was stolen was the lifelong research of a respected expert, a final model of a spiritual weapon. The captain's team's job was to make sure the information got back into the right hands. Lin reassured the captain that he and Shenxing would handle everything carefully. Shenxing explained that the spiritual weapon could absorb spiritual energy and amplify it in attacks. Unfortunately, the original researcher had passed away. Lin said it was important to recover what was stolen and honor the master's legacy. Instructor Chao arrived with a support team. Shenxing suggested they coordinate with the fire department to evacuate the hotel under the guise of a drill. Lin remembered the system and requested today's skill. He received the land driving skill, which lets him drive any type of vehicle, including tanks and armored vehicles. Lin was annoyed that it was only a rank E skill. During the Lost Day, Lin had also gained a ventriloquism skill, which lets him replicate any sound, something he realized would be useful for this mission. He asked Lin Chong where the group might have hidden the explosives. After Lin Chong shared his thoughts, Lin felt confident it would be easy to handle. He laughed and said they just needed to take the flame out of the cauldron and set the inn on fire. Then Lin says, the captain and his assistants pretend to be police to help the criminals escape as quickly as possible to a safe distance in case of an explosion. Then, the captain would take the criminals to a place where Shenxing and Lin could deal with them. If the criminals are eliminated, all the necessary information can be obtained using their phone and memory card. By phone, Lin can pretend to be one of the criminals and invite the other party to the desired place. Lin Chong feared that something would go wrong, but Lin assured him that he could imitate the voices of the criminals. Lin was sure that with the criminal's phone, he could easily attract the other party to return the lost data. Lin Chong assumed that Lin had the ventriloquism skill and asked Lin to promise to remove the explosives before they activated. The instructor decided to trust Lin and announced to everyone that the mission would start at 8 in the evening. A couple of hours were left for the mission, and Lin wanted to sleep. He fell asleep for a moment and saw himself harassing Shenxing. Fortunately, it was a dream, and Shenxing was able to wake him up. Lin woke up just in time for the mission to start. The heroes prepared the radio and began to wait for the commander's order. Soon, the entire hotel was on fire alert. The leader of the criminal group thought that their affairs had been exposed and that the alarm was false. His assistant concluded that there was a real fire in the hotel, but did not know what to do. The commander ordered his subordinates to follow him according to the evacuation rules. He added that the explosives must be left in the room so as not to reveal their plans during the evacuation. One of the leader's subordinates set the timer for the explosives and went after the commander. The timer was set exactly for 10 minutes. When the group left their room, the firefighters were already spraying the hotel with water. Lin was on the street and watched every movement of the bandits. Lin Chong's men put the criminals in a car under the pretext of evacuation. Lin Chong ordered his subordinates to deal with the explosives immediately so that an explosion would not occur. Lin and Shenxing ran to the 3rd floor where the bandits' room was. In Buck's room, they found several explosives with timers installed. Unfortunately, none of the heroes knew how to deactivate the explosives. Lin informed Shenxing that everything here would explode in exactly 3 minutes. Shenxing began to worry and said that the explosion would be huge and that the entire hotel would fly into space. From her words, Lin understood that he could use the spatial skill. He used the skill of any door, which can move an object up to 50 meters. Using the portal, the heroes reached the hotel's roof. Using the necessary knowledge of physics and his skills, Lin calculated safe actions. 30 seconds before the explosion, he asked Shenxing to throw him as high as possible. 20 seconds were left for the explosion, and the girl began to swing the rope to throw it into the air. It turned out that Lin wanted to use any door at the moment of the explosion. He decided to open a new door with each new jump to avoid being caught in the explosion. 5 seconds were left, and Lin threw the explosives through the highest door. Thanks to his skills, he was able to throw explosives 50 meters high. 1 second later, a real fireworks show took place in the sky. The girl looked at the fireworks with loving eyes and did not even think about Lin falling from the sky. Lin attracted her attention and asked for help. The shockwave increased Lin's falling speed, and he could crash into the ground. When Lin was near the ground, Shenxing managed to catch him. Lin was truly moved by this rescue. First, the hero needs to restore spiritual energy. Shenxing suggested using spiritual pearls to restore strength. She gave Lin a gold-level pearl and said that somehow they would settle things later. The hero took the pearl and asked Shenxing to show him the place where she found them. When the hero recovered, he and Shenxing set out to face those criminals. When Lin Chong heard the explosion, he began to worry about the kids. The criminals got alarmed and asked the fake policeman where they were going. Lin Chong explained to the criminals that urgent matters had arisen and that they were almost there. The leader of the criminal group told his subordinate to be on guard because he felt that something was wrong. The car arrived at the place, and Lin Chong was confident that the rest of the team was already ready. Lin Chong hit one of the captured criminals, and they realized that he was not a policeman. The assistant informed the captain that she felt something was wrong, and she claimed that poisonous gas had been spread there. Another member of the group emerged from the darkness and said that he specialized in toxic substances. In his opinion, absolutely everyone present here would suffer. This poison was so toxic that it seemed to corrode Lin Chong's body. He looked, examined his men, and assumed that they could die from that poison. The criminal started a conversation with Lin Chong and asked him to introduce himself. The criminal buck hinted that he had heard about Lin Chong and the origin of the scars on his face. Lin Chong asked where the villain who had deformed his face was, but the criminal did not reveal that information. He used a special skill and created a giant rhinoceros. Lin Chong had to use his skills to make stone skin and strengthen his defense. He grabbed the rhinoceros and threw it to one side. The criminal told his companions that only the weak could not use their skills due to the poison. The deputy leader also decided to use his skills and summoned the wind element. Lin Chong's subordinates told him to avenge them because they most likely could not survive there. Lin Chong had already committed an act of betrayal to his comrades once, and all these years he blamed himself for it. The leader's subordinate used the wind skills again and ran toward Lin Chong. The leader was sure that Lin Chong was no longer a survivor and simply needed to be eliminated. The wind caused numerous wounds on Lin Chong's body. Lin Chong strengthened the defenses around him and waited for another attack from the criminal. Lin Chong's subordinates noticed that he had started to bleed. The instructor realized that he could not escape his fate and regretted not being able to save the guys. When he had already said goodbye to his life, he saw a car flying toward the criminal. At that moment, Lin Chong thought it was a miraculous rescue and wondered who that daredevil was. Lin flew out of the car at high speed, hugging Shenxing. They arrived while Captain Lin Chong was still alive. Lin Chong informed his subordinates that they had fallen into a trap and that everyone would die from the poison. The criminals were confused when a police car ran over one of their members. The leader ordered his subordinate to treat another fighter and ordered the rest to attack. They said it in a completely incomprehensible language, but fortunately, Lin knew it. The criminals were stunned when they heard that Lin could speak their language. When they recovered from their shock and began to attack, Shenxing started her transformation into a demon. The expert in earth elemental techniques was the tank of the mercenary group. The girl's murderous aura could have disastrous consequences for the entire criminal group. She only made one move and shattered the criminal's arm. The criminals got alarmed when they realized that the power of 9 golden stars had fallen upon them. They decided to attack the girl altogether, but they failed. Meanwhile, Lin Chong and his subordinates were losing consciousness little by little. The healer girl urgently recommended that Lin at least save the commander because he was about to die. Fortunately, Lin had previously acquired the skill of the art of medicine and bought some medicines. He can determine the degree of poisoning by his pulse, and if he intervenes now, the girl will be fine. But after a moment, the girl was saved from the poisoning. The healer girl asked to save the commander, but the hero asked her for help. Lin made a cut on her arm and extracted some blood. The healer girl felt that the dizziness was fading into the background and that she was recovering her strength. Lin promised her that soon the poison would completely leave her body. The healer girl asked to save the commander, but the hero reminded her that she was a healer. She used her healing skills on Lin Chong's body and brought him back to life. The criminals did not understand how the healer removed the poison from the victims' bodies. After what they saw, panic began in the criminal group. The leader decided to release another wave of poison. He told his opponents that their treatment was useless and that he could poison them all again. The criminals decided that they would be safe if the girl was poisoned. They threw poison at her, but she absorbed it completely. It turned out that Shenxing had a new demonic weapon that added 1,000 points to poison immunity. She saw the one who was spraying the poison and made him tremble with fear. In a matter of seconds, the young man was sent flying upward by her attack. The leader of the group thought that Shenxing was turning the toxins into her own mana, and now the girl was gently approaching the leader of the group. She dealt with all of them and left them to die on the ground. The heroes only have to wait for the criminals to regain their senses and admit their defeat. Lin Chong went to report to the leaders and ordered them to take the leader for interrogation. The healer girl told Lin that Lin Chong forgave the leader because he needed secret information. She said that 8 years ago, Lin Chong was accepted into the team and went on a special mission with the previous commander. They needed to protect something valuable, something that many people wanted to possess. The captain and his companion repelled an attack from several units, but then they encountered something strange. On the enemy side, there were diamonds and platinum. And even if the commander was platinum at that time, he still could not have resisted this man. In the end, everyone died except the commander, and thanks to his sacrifice, Lin Chong could escape. Since then, the scar that man left remained on his face. Lin Chong allowed it to be healed, saying that for him it was a kind of reminder of those events. The healer girl added that Lin Chong still considers himself a deserter and talks about it constantly. Lin realized that Lin Chong still had not given up. He wondered how strong this guy would be now after so many years. At that moment, Shenxing attacked the leader and his assistant and destroyed them. For these actions, she received a platinum-level breakthrough. Lin Chong ordered that the remaining ones be taken away to ask them some questions. He asked the first girl he met how they knew he had a scar on his face. The girl pretended that she did not understand the language and started making excuses. Lin acted as a translator and explained the situation to the girl. A couple of minutes later, he informed Lin Chong that these people did not know anything about his scar. Unfortunately, the one who knew about his scar was poisoned with toxins and has no cure. The healer girl appeared immediately and announced that she could restore his sanity. Feeling the warmth of the envelope on himself, the man regained his senses. Lin Chong told Shenxing to take everyone else out of there to start the interrogation. He himself approached the guy and asked him to tell everything he knew. The young man did not want to say anything because he thought it would be useless. Lin Chong promised that he would not kill him if it was true, but he did not believe him. Knowing what Lin Chong thought about oaths, the young man asked him to promise that nothing would happen to him. Lin Chong swore that the members of his team would not do anything against this guy. The criminal said that Capella was an American agent, a man with incredible skills, and it was he who left this scar on his face. In their last meeting, this man was at the peak of the diamond level. The criminal said that he learned this information after Capella had a drink with him and told him everything. During all these years, Lin Chong also thought about Capella, but could not gather evidence. After hearing this information, Lin Chong decided to let these guys go. Lin said that it was not necessary to let these criminals go because they had already obtained the necessary information. The criminal said that according to the oath, his team would be cursed for several years. Lin said that the team may be afraid of curses, but he has nothing to do with them. He turned into a white rabbit and advised the boy not to resist. He dealt with the bandit and got his phone. After that, he informed Lin Chong about the explosion that did not cause victims. Then Lin Chong bowed to Lin in gratitude. He believed that thanks to Lin, the operation was successful and all his subordinates were still alive. Lin asked the commander not to thank him anymore for his help. Lin Chong asked not to call him commander anymore because they were not strangers and instead could simply call him brother. Brother Lin Chong suggested that they go back to interrogate the surviving guys and then rest a bit. The next day, Lin began to interrogate one of the bandits. The girl's name is Matsushita Mimiko, and she is from Japan. Initially, she worked as a prostitute and then became a healer in a criminal group. She began to charm Lin and asked him to release her. Shenxing intervened in the interrogation and asked the girl to behave more modestly. Lin asked Mimiko who her employer was, but she was not completely sure of the answer. One day, she saw the boss talking to an American. She added that she knows who contacted them from the other side, and added that he has a high status. Lin asked Mimiko how much they were supposed to be paid for the job. The leader's subordinate promised that they would be paid around 100 million in gold for the job. Lin was surprised by such a sum that almost half of the sum was paid to the girl before the mission, and they promised 70 after its completion. Mimiko calmed Lin and said that she knew the password for the shared account. Alarmed, Lin began to look for a computer genius to access the account. And minutes later, the computer genius Yang Fan was invited. Lin asked the young man to transfer all the money from the mercenary's account to his account. Lin showed some attention to Shen Xing and asked for a small commission for the job. After a couple of minutes, everything was ready, and the money was transferred to the organization's account. When Lin saw how much money there was, he felt offended for asking for a small percentage. Shen Xing wanted to pay him much more than he asked for, but he insisted on 1.5 million. Shen Xing got angry with the young man and said that she had previously intended to give him 10 million for the job. Lin decided to find a way to heal his broken heart and called a system. The system extracted today's rank E skill. Curiously, the hero was given the skill of appraising treasures, with which he will be able to determine the authenticity of jewels. Lin decided that with this skill, he would often visit the antique market to deceive sellers. Lin Chong approached him and told him to prepare for the scheduled meeting. They turned on the criminal's phone and put it on speaker. There was an accomplice of the criminals on the line, but Lin easily imitated Buck's voice. The criminal asked Buck what had happened yesterday, and Lin replied that they simply moved to another hotel due to the fire. The accomplice promised to contact Buck after he arrived at the right place. After the conversation, Lin asked his comrades to be on guard because the English had a Chinese accent. Lin Chong asked the surviving criminals to cooperate with them, otherwise they would regret everything. The criminals promised that they would cooperate with Lin Chong's team and behave well. And minutes had passed, but the phone still had not rung. Lin suggested contacting the criminal himself, but Lin Chong wanted to wait a bit longer. At that same moment, the phone rang and that Chinese voice was on the line again. The criminal said that the item he needed was in storage box number 35 of the supermarket. He strongly recommended that Buck send someone to pick up the goods. Lin told the criminal that he had to deliver the goods in person, at which point the call was cut off. The team was not sure how to behave and whether it was worth going to the supermarket. Lin said that someone from the outside could be watching the storage. He said that they could not simply ignore the contents of the cell. Lin calmed the commander and said that they had a suitable candidate for the messenger. The role of the messenger should be played by the guy who survived. 10 minutes later, the designated messenger was at the supermarket. He looked around the supermarket and found stall 35. Previously, Lin promised him that as soon as he took the thing out of the cell, his team would save him from various problems. When the messenger did not know how to open the cell, a dangerous shadow appeared behind him. Someone pushed him on the shoulder, but when the guy turned around, there was no one there. On the ground, he saw a note that the group had passed. Fortunately, the young man managed to open the cell and take the goods. There was a flash drive in the package, and the messenger handed it over to the team. With the help of the same computer hacker, the heroes began to read this flash drive. Lin Chong said that with this information, they only have to wait for their comrades and hand it over. Lin decided to give the mercenaries a surprise at the end, because they still believe everything is going well. The team leader must find out what the criminals wanted to do after receiving the package. Lin promised that his deal with the messenger would remain valid only if he provided the information they needed. The girl said that they had to deliver this package to the coast, and that the coordinates were on the phone. Taking the criminal's phone in his hands, a brilliant idea crossed Lin's mind. Lin called the criminal and said that they urgently needed to deliver this package to the right place. He did this to receive confirmation of the final payment and not lose money. The person on the phone said that the final payment would be made after the delivery. When he refused the payment, Lin said that he wanted 100 million, not 70 million. The criminal went to talk to his boss to ask about the payment. Soon the money was delivered to the criminal's account, and the interlocutor asked to deliver the goods as soon as possible. The hacker reported that the transfer came to them for an amount of 100 million. Everyone thought this situation was wonderful, that they had not only obtained information, but also tricked the criminals into getting money. Shenxing asked the hacker to transfer all the money to her account. Lin said that he specifically asked for a large sum to reserve it for marriage. Shenxing proposed marriage to Lin, and then he would receive even more. Now Lin did not know who to choose, Shenxing or Qin himself. He pushed Shenxing to one side and said that she had no chance against Qin. The girl apologized and said that she would pay Lin 30 million as compensation. A few hours later, a support group arrived to join the team. Murong Tu, one of the 3 most influential people in China, got off the helicopter. Shenxing told Lin that this man was respected by all soldiers because he was known as the fierce tiger of the army. Lin Chong told Murong that there was no merit in that and pointed to Lin modestly. The man found it strange that he had never heard the name Lin before. Shenxing introduced Lin and explained to the master that he was her teacher. It turned out that Shenxing was his relative and saw Lin as a brother-in-law. The gentleman's phone rang and informed him that his interlocutor's granddaughter was doing well. Lin Chong told Lin that Shenxing's grandfather was also known as an influential person due to one of the operations to eliminate the enemy in the country. After the conversation, Murong thanked the team for eliminating all the criminals. Lin Chong handed the gentleman a flash drive containing the information they were trying to steal. The gentleman said that Zhang Hong is the most talented person in the country. After reaching the gold level, he decided to dedicate himself to researching spiritual weapons. Murong promised the late master that he would protect the results of his research. He set off and ordered his team to conduct a thorough investigation to find the main culprit. Murong flew in a helicopter and took that pair of bandits with him to beat some information out of them. Lin and his team did not waste time and went to the base. They did not say a single word during the entire journey and returned to headquarters early in the morning. Upon their return, the captain's behavior surprised Lin a little. Commander invited Lin to join his team. Lin rejected the offer because he does not want to be in the army. The commander asked Lin to think about it and added that he had requested the higher authorities for a first-degree decoration for Lin. Shenxing intervened in the conversation and said that there was a more suitable reward for Lin, she whispered in the commander's ear that Lin needed the treasure of his team. At first, Lin was happy with this conversation, but then he heard that they were talking about an animal. Lin only wanted them to give him the money, but the captain ordered them to bring a new reward. Shen Xing assured Lin that he would like this compensation for his work. An egg with horns appeared in front of Lin. Shen Xing said that they still do not know what kind of egg it is or how to incubate it. With the help of the system, Lin tried to find information about this egg. The assistant said that it was a huge dragon egg and that it definitely needed to be planted. Lin thought that if there is an egg, it means it has parents. Lin decided that when the egg hatched, he would use it as a means of transportation. His incubation skill told him that this egg could hatch, but it would be quite a hassle. Suddenly, Shenxing realized that something was wrong with the egg. It turned out that Shenxing had been trying to break this egg for months, but when she failed, she turned into a demon. Lin announced to his comrades that he had discovered that it was a dragon egg. The commander told Lin that this was the egg of a legendary dragon that flew in the sky. For a moment, he began to regret giving Lin that egg instead of money. Lin explained that there were two options to cultivate this egg. According to the first option, if an extremely spiritually strong person puts their strength into it, then in 10 years. The second option is to use spiritual cores so that it hatches much faster. The commander said that they had no reason to take back what they had given to Lin and that it would take a lot of effort to plant that egg. Now Lin thought that it would be great if he had his own dragon. At night, before going to sleep, Lin began to feed the egg with his spiritual energy. He knew that if he fed that egg every day, he would be able to hatch a dragon chick. When he released a stream of energy toward the egg, he achieved a breakthrough of 2 silver stars. He remembered that Shen Xing had given him a golden core before. He wondered whether to absorb it into himself or use it to create a dragon egg. Still, he decided to absorb this core into himself because it would not bring any benefit to the egg. After absorbing the core, Lin received a breakthrough of 3 silver stars. All that was left for Lin to do was sell the unwanted cores in exchange for more expensive ones. He definitely wanted to ask brother Lin Chong about this idea in the morning. When Lin woke up in the morning, he discovered that all his cores had disappeared. He hinted to Lin Chong that a thief had entered the headquarters and taken his cores. Lin Chong explained to Lin that there was no thief who could penetrate Lin's outer space. After thinking a bit, Lin realized that the cores were stolen by a dragon egg. Lin was angry with the egg for not waiting for the sale of unnecessary cores and the purchase of more valuable ones. This egg ate grains worth 100 million yuan. Lin announced to the commander that he was returning to the academy because he needed to continue his military training. Lin Chong informed Lin that he still had a bunch of people with unanswered questions. Lin Chong advised the student to first finish the work he had started and then go to the academy. Shenxing was worried that the teacher would abandon them and asked him not to leave. On the girl's face, it was written that she had fallen in love with Lin during those days. Shenxing said that without Lin, they could not address the research on spiritual animals. The laboratory technicians also said that hard times would return after Lin left. Lin announced that he had written a small manual especially for them, which contained answers to many questions. The laboratory technicians were happy with the reference book, but Shen Xing was not happy. In the following days, Lin devoted himself entirely to writing a book about spiritual beasts. She decided to take revenge on him and every day gave him skills on how to maintain and care for spiritual animals. Finally, Lin managed to complete the book, which began to be copied and distributed to the headquarters staff. At night, Shen Xing came to the hero, who was worried about his transfer the next day. The girl was curious to know how Lin had acquired so much knowledge at his young age. Lin tried to deceive her and made up that he had a wise mentor. Shen Xing pretended to believe him and said that she had come to thank him for all his help. It could have taken them decades to master the knowledge he passed on to them. Shen Xing admitted that she and her team would miss Lin and asked him to visit them more often. Lin promised to answer all the questions they asked him from a distance. The next morning, Lin felt sad because this place had given him many good memories. He decided to abandon the headquarters while everyone was still sleeping. It was strange that when he woke up in the morning, he could not find his headphones and began to look for them actively. When he finally decided to leave, the commander ordered his subordinates to line up. At his order, all the soldiers saluted Lin. Lin did not know how to describe his feelings because at that moment he could not even imagine that they would do something like that for him. He realized that he would never forget that little story because it would be imprinted forever in his memory. The commander felt offended because Lin did not accept joining his team. When the eagle with Lin and Lin Chong flew upward, Addie Shenxing said that her team was not very suitable for him. The team would have slowed his growth, she said. Upon arriving, Lin asked Lin Chong if he had done the right thing by rejecting such an offer. When Lin Chong said that those people did not come out to say goodbye to Lin for no reason, Lin felt overwhelmed by strange feelings. Lin Chong said that Lin can be proud of himself because his rank in the research team is comparable to that of a captain. Lin Chong wanted to go see the director and explain what Lin had been doing all this time. Lin refused and said that he would first meet with his university friends. He arrived at his room and was greeted by the sleepy voice of Fat San. The fat man himself did not seem like himself and had changed noticeably in his physical development. All the roommates were happy that Lin had finally returned to them. Nobody knew what happened to the fat man, but after military training, he changed a lot. It turned out that the fat man had defended Lin many times when he was absent from the university. He himself said that in the institute's forum, they only talked about Lin. The next day, everyone arrived at the stadium for the announcement of the results. Lin was worried because there he would see his beloved Chin. Soon, the girl appeared before Lin's eyes and greeted him on his return. At that moment, Yang approached him and began to show him signs of attention. When the girl said that she missed Lin, Chin was burning with jealousy. Lin got out of the situation and said that all this time he was only thinking about the goddess Chin. The director of the academy, whose name is Ouyang Zhe, came out before the students. Of all the students, the director only greeted Lin. The director greeted Lin and asked him to sit with him. He promised that as soon as he had free time, he would definitely study with Lin. Lin realized that the owner of the spatial system wanted to teach him all the nuances. Lin could not refuse and sat next to the university director. None of the students could understand why Lin had the opportunity to sit with the director. Chin felt a gap of strength between her and Lin, but she was extremely happy for him. During the performance of the second-year students, Lin decided to keep busy and learn a new skill for the day. The system congratulated him for activating the thunder control skill. Lin was happy to have obtained a rank A skill, and the issue of rank E skills was closed forever. The assistant reported that an animal transformation skill had been discovered, and that several skills could be combined. Lin decided not to miss this opportunity to become stronger and combined his skills. The system congratulated its owner for raising his transformation skill to rank B. Thanks to this, Lin became a thunder animal and can use thunder for any purpose. In addition, Lin acquired the ability to generate electricity through friction, which can only be used in beast form. The hero also received the heavenly punishment with which he can crush the enemy with a single blow, as well as with lightning. Lin understands that these skills will not help him against a crowd because they can only be used on one target. He hoped to be able to get a group attack soon. He asked the system what his power level was, and it responded that he was just below the SSS rank. The military training ended, and the hero heard the students thanking instructor Chin Ming. Lin was eager to finish the preparations, but now he feels a little sad. The director approached him and asked him to go to the academy director's office. He accompanied Lin through a training room that almost nobody knew about. The academy director, Ouyang Zhe, trained in this training room. Lin had the feeling that Yang wanted to beat him in this arena. The director made it clear to Lin that he wanted to fight with him. Lin had no other choice and decided to test the beast transformation skills. When he turned into a white rabbit, the director noticed that his skills had increased. Lin showed the man all his strength and dealt him a powerful blow. After attacking, he used his skill of opening doors and fled the scene. The director noticed that Lin had thunder and lightning powers, as well as a gold-level attack. Lin appeared again near the director, and he persistently asked him to show everything he was capable of doing. Then, Lin used lightning and heavenly punishment for the first time. The director was completely covered by an electric charge and could not move. After Lin showed all his skills, the director felt ashamed of himself. He was sure that Lin had a great future, because in just 1 month he had become much stronger. He invited Lin to become his personal student. Lin agreed with the proposal and asked to be taught all the nuances of mastering the spatial system. For this, the director decided to give him a reward in the form of a gold-level spatial sphere. He asked the boy in front of him to absorb the sphere, and the hero did so. Apart from the director, there is no other owner of a spatial system in China, and this man can be considered his successor. By absorbing the sphere, Lin achieved a breakthrough of 4 silver stars. Lin decided to test his strength and broke a mannequin that was at a great distance. The director discovered that Lin's spatial system was very different from his. Lin said that one of the skills of the spatial system is to open any door. The master hinted to Lin that he could use this skill to open his own door. Lin thought about his words and decided to try his skill. After leveling up to 4 silver stars, the distance between the doors increased to 70 meters. With this skill, his speed will increase approximately double. Even if the enemy dodges his attack, he can attack him again. Suddenly, the director's granddaughter called him and said it was time to eat. It turned out that Yang was his granddaughter and was not happy with her grandfather's conversation with Lin. Yang asked the director not to think that Lin had a spatial system. She insisted that Lin was just a rabbit and that everything he said was complete nonsense. When the director said that he would be Lin's teacher, Yang got very angry with him. The director said goodbye to his new student and said that he would return when official classes began. San approached Lin and invited him to spend the weekend usefully. Soon, the young people arrived at the huge buildings. This company is the 3rd largest in the country, and Lin almost forgot that San belongs to a wealthy family. Suddenly, San greeted one of the passers-by. It was Janger, the 2nd son of a wealthy company. San greeted Janger and told Lin that he was his brother. Seeing San lose weight, Janger did not believe it was his brother. San introduced Lin to his brother and said that he helped him adapt to the academy. Janger had heard about Lin and allowed him to call him brother. He invited a group of young people to come in to talk. They entered and began to ascend to the desired floor in a luxurious elevator. Upon entering the apartment, Lin noticed too many ancient treasures. Zhanger asked the guest to look at some items and estimate their value. Fortunately, Lin had the necessary skill which allowed him to discover that that item was fake. He said that half the room was full of fakes, and that angered Zhanger. Zhanger said that he spent a lot of money on this collection and even had it appraised by experts. Lin decided to prove to brother Zhanger that he was right. Zhanger doubted that the guest was better than the experts he had hired. The young people took the first object they found and began to evaluate it. Lin said that if this item is authentic, then its value is estimated at no less than 20 million. Zhanger believed the guest and said that he had paid exactly 25 for that item. Then Lin asked to listen to him and explained that the original was worth 25 million and the fake was worth 100,000. He explained that this technique of making fakes appeared in antiquity. In the end, it turned out that Zhanger had spent 25 million to buy a fake that was worth 100,000. Lin annoyed this young man, but decided to continue appraising his property. After evaluating some things, Zhanger invited the hero to attend the auction with him tomorrow. The next day, Lin was waiting for the moment to go to the auction. He decided to take advantage of his time and learn a new skill for today. The system congratulated its owner for receiving the X-ray skill of Brank. Lin could only dream of this X-ray to examine the body of the beautiful Chin. When the system suggested that he use the skill, he did not even think about it. It turned out that this skill allows the hero to see the essence of all things. Lin looked around the room and could see what was inside the objects. San entered his room without understanding what was happening to Lin. Lin pretended that everything was fine and asked San why he came. San reminded Lin that he would soon have to go to the auction with Zhanger. The auction took place in the Tianbao Pavilion. There were quite serious people there, and it seemed that Lin had no place among them. After scanning the guards, Lin realized that they even had spiritual magic here. Upon recognizing Jay, the administrator greeted him and asked him to continue on his way. San said that only the most influential people can attend this auction. Lin was lucky and saw his goddess among the guests. The girl was in the company of her mother and immediately greeted Lin. The name of Chin's mother was Wen Shihan, and it turned out that she recognized Lin. Lin realized that he had just met his future mother-in-law. Chin's mother was angry with Lin because he had hit her daughter many times. Wen found it strange that San also knew Lin. Zhanger explained the situation and said that Lin was a friend of his brother. Soon the woman's face changed and she winked at Lin. She said that her daughter told her a lot about Lin. Wen liked this boy, and it seemed to her that her daughter was in love with him. The auction is about to begin, and before that, the host decided to remind the guests of something. He said that each piece comes with a certificate of authenticity, but the guests must understand that errors can occur. The owner of the pavilion, whose name is Li Zhenyu, asked the guests to keep everything secret and not make it public. Without further ado, he started the auction and handed the first coupon to the guests. It was an enameled bowl with plum blossoms painted from the Song dynasty. Li Zhenyu counted to 3 and asked the guests to start making their bids. Zhanger immediately asked Lin if the item was fake. Lin scanned the items and said that they were genuine and worth no more than 5 million. Yang raised his hand and announced the price that Lin had told him. The pavilion owner Li Zhenyu asked the guests to continue making their bids. All the guests sat in silence, and nobody wanted to surpass that high price. Li Zhenyu congratulated Zhanger for buying the bowl for 5 million. Meanwhile, the host announced a new lot for 300,000. After looking at this object, Lin discovered that it was fake. Then Li Zhenyu showed the landscape and announced the starting price of 400,000. Lin could easily determine whether an item was authentic or not. After selling the small lots, Li Zhenyu moved to his favorite part. He said that now the guests would see an object worth no less than 100 million. All those who were there became interested in this proposal and followed the host. Lin got bored and asked Zhanger if there were gambling games in this building. Lin thought that this event was a good opportunity to try his luck. Later, one guy greeted Chin. According to him, he and the goddess had known each other for a long time. Suddenly, Lin gently touched her hand, but the men did not like it. Lin grabbed her hand and anxiously asked Chin where she had been lost. At that moment, Chin could not recover from the shock that Lin had helped her get rid of her boyfriend. Sangha was angry because this young man was getting under his feet. He asked his assistant to get information about Lin. The heroes were also interested in the slot and followed the crowd. Lin kept looking around and could not understand if the annoying suitor had left. Chin gently pushed him away from her and promised that next time she would cut off his hand. When Lin justified his actions, the girl said that he should have warned her about this. Soon, all the guests arrived at the huge, multicolored stones. After scanning the stones, Lin realized that they were nothing more than ordinary trash. The mines from which these stones are extracted are called quarries, and the extracted stones are called material or merchandise. Few people manage to appreciate their authenticity and value, and thus the gambling business associated with stones was born. The game itself is tied to risks associated with the quality and price of the stones. This stone must be exactly what the auction organizer said it was. If it is evaluated correctly, you can get a stone whose price can reach up to 1,000 million. Lin carefully examined the nearest stone and realized that it was fake. When Lin was thinking about this stone, Songi approached him. He advised Lin to stay away from Chin because he was not worthy of her. Lin laughed and replied to the boy that he was worth nothing compared to him. Sangha believes that he and Chin are the perfect couple. Lin told Sangha that he had accumulated trash in his head, and that made the boy angry. Sangha challenged Lin to a game, and whoever lost would leave the city and leave Chin alone. Lin tried to explain to his opponent that the girl was not merchandise and could not be treated like that. Sangha insisted that Lin accept the bet, and if he lost, he would give the winner 100 million. Lin refused because the bet was too small. He announced his price and said that the loser would give the winner 500 million. Sangja's family would definitely not pat him on the head if he lost, but if he backed out, he would lose prestige. He assumed that Lin was bluffing and did not have that amount of money. Then he approached Lin and said that he would find the money. Sangha's assistant believed that Lin was lying and only wanted to show off in front of the girl. Finally, Sangha accepted the bet on Lin's terms. When the men went to talk, the mother asked her daughter if she was in love with Lin, and she proudly replied that she had no time to fall in love right now. The woman Wen made it clear to Chin that she was happy when her daughter smiled. The auction organizer joined the bet between the two men. Li Zhenyu said that all the exhibits are divided into 6 categories according to their value. Everyone had heard that the price of these pieces ranged from 3,000 to 1,000 million or more. Each participant must choose 10 pieces, and the one with the most expensive one will win. Sangha was the first to choose his first stone from the pile of stones. Lin also made his choice carefully and informed the host. Sangha realizes that his stones are much more valuable than Lin's. The host was ready to evaluate this choice and asked who would go first. Lin could not wait to hear how he won the first level of this bet. Lin's first stone was ice jade and was worth about 10 million. Everyone present thought that Lin was just lucky. Now it was Sangha's turn to show off his first stone. When the assistants began to cut the stone, Lin realized that he had originally set his sights on it. When the stone was cut, everyone present shouted that it was made of gold. Sangha's assistant thought about it, but Sangha assured him that they would definitely win with this stone. The host Li Zhenyu took a long time to respond, but then said that this stone was worth 8 million. It was clear to everyone that Lin had won this round of betting. After the first round, Lin had a lead of 2 million. Lin decided to buy Chin a gift in honor of the victory. She felt embarrassed and asked Lin to continue the bet and choose the next stone. Unfortunately, the second game ended in a tie, but in the third, Sangha's assistant won. The final round of stone selection awaited the participants. Sangha got alarmed upon discovering that Lin had a lead of almost 2 million. Uncle Wang, who was Sangha's assistant, assumed that Lin was an expert in jewels. When the young men had to choose the last stone, Sangha's team was not sure of their choice. Sangha believed that he could seize the victory and take home 500 million. He pointed to a huge green stone and asked the leader to cut it. Anne entered the bet, who said that the value of this stone was 10 million and said that the opponent clearly knew something. Lin decided to raise the bet and said that the loser would give his stone to the winner. Sangha got scared and sweat began to run down his face. Sangha agreed and suggested that Lin choose the stone first. Sangha's assistant noticed that Lin's skills were quite good, but he was sure that this time it would definitely be the end for him. When Lin chose the stone, people were sure that that crumb was worth nothing. The auction organizer asked Lin to review his choice again, but he was confident. On the table was a huge golden stone and a Lin stone. Sangha asked for his stone to be cut first so that Lin would realize his mistake. When the young man's stone was cut, everyone found that it was hollow. The young man received only 15 million for this stone. Sangha realized that he had a 13 million advantage over Lin. He was sure that such a gap could not be bridged with that stone, whose price was no more than 3,000. Suddenly, Lin announced that he did not want the stone to be cut, and that it would be enough to simply polish it. The host said that the probability that this stone had any value was almost 0. When the stone was polished, everyone saw that the imperial emerald was on the table. One of the witnesses pointed out that this stone is worth at least 50 million. Lin hoped that his opponent would quickly admit defeat. Sangha broke into a sweat and announced that he did not have that amount to pay. Then, one of the people asked Lin to sell this stone for 60 million. The participants began to raise the price one after another, and now it has grown to 80 million. The auctioneer was willing to give Lin 100 million and buy the rest of the stones. The hero agreed with the host because it would save him unnecessary trouble. Lin realized that only one last stone remained where the pile of stones had been. Chin thought that Lin wanted to give her the red jade, but Lin gently pushed her and approached Aunt Wen. He gave this red jade to his beloved's mother as a token of their first meeting. The future mother-in-law thanked Lin and said that she liked him at first sight. Meanwhile, Sunga asked his father for help to pay the bet. The father, amidst fights and shouts, helped his son and transferred the required amount. Songa promised that in the future he would definitely take revenge on Lin for this situation. He paid Lin the lost debt, and for now the matter was closed. Lin was happy to be able to earn 600 million in one day. He remembered his dragon egg that needed to be incubated. Lin realized that that money would not be enough to buy spiritual spheres for the egg. Jenger thanked Lin for this wonderful evening. Lin turned to him and said that he had a small request. Lin asked Anne to help him acquire spiritual spheres with the money he earned. Jenger said that that money would not be enough to buy the spheres of the spatial system. He added that if he could find something suitable through his connections, he would definitely let Lin know. Lin decided that he would rest in this center for a couple of days. He woke up the next day and called an assistant to extract the skill. He was granted the SS rank transformation skill of the legendary rabbit that gains power from the moonlight. Lin found it strange that he had not received a rank E skill even once in the last few days. With the skill he acquired, Lin can transform into a lunar spatial rabbit. Lin was eager to try his new skill as soon as possible. When he did this, he realized that the transformation required quite a bit of energy. Lin wondered how long he could last if he used the skill during the full moon. The system reported that with maximum energy output, Lin could only last 1 minute. Soon the assistant decided to thank his master for his service and granted him 4 more minutes for the skill. 2 days later, that many people were returning to the academy that day because classes had started. But suddenly they met a strange girl who asked them for help with her luggage. It was Lin Yun, who had 9 golden stars and a shadow system. The girl was sure that these 2 guys were doing everything they could to get her attention. She boldly asked them to carry her stuff downstairs. The main character replied sharply, saying they weren't her servants. Then she acted like the politest girl ever and asked for help again. This time, the hero decided to lend a hand and took her bags. On the way to the dorm, the girl wanted to get to know them better. She said her name was Lin Yun and that she was a 3rd-year student. San told his friend that this girl was the biggest beauty in town. In Lin's opinion, she looked nice, but still wasn't as great as his beloved goddess. Lin Yun left the guys and went to talk to the commander. At that moment, someone's underwear fell on San from above. Lin apologized and said she'd return it to the owner. The next day, the students sat in their first class, which was about spiritual animals. The main character was bored in class because he already knew everything about the animals. The lecture was given by a famous Chinese professor of spiritual beasts. The hero thought no one understood spiritual animals as well as he did. He started writing down the lesson topic and noticed a few mistakes. The professor saw this and asked what he was writing in his notebook. When the professor took Lin's notebook, he asked for his name. The old man was confused because the main character thought one animal wasn't nocturnal. Lin stood by his opinion, saying those animals have bad vision in the dark, and you'd have to see it yourself to know. The professor explained that scientists believe this animal is very active at night. The other students were confused about why. Their famous professor was discussing this with Lin. Sima didn't like it and asked the professor to get back to the lesson. The professor told the other students he was talking to Lin about some errors in the textbook. He decided to let the annoyed students leave so they wouldn't distract him from his talk with Lin. He said a mistake they didn't catch could cost someone dearly and would weigh on his conscience. The next class was math. The main character was happy there was an empty seat next to his beloved. Then Yang came up to Lin and asked him to sit with her so she could explain some topics. Yang let Lin sit somewhere else, but she was quietly upset. After a while, martial arts training started. Before the class began, Lin asked Yang why she was following him. Lin didn't like it because if this kept up, the goddess wouldn't want to be with him. It turned out this subject would be taught by the group's mentor for the month. Teacher Han said that before training started, each student had to show their strength. The first was the goddess Qin, followed by Yang, and both girls did well. When it was Lin's turn, he got nervous because he didn't know how to show his strength. Han asked him to turn into a rabbit and promised no one would laugh. For the first time in front of others, the main character had to transform into a lunar rabbit. When blue energy covered his body, everyone was completely shocked. In this form, Lin could jump as high as possible and break anything in his way. Even the guys wanted to touch his ears. Yang was happy her grandfather had found such a good-looking guy for her. The teacher stopped Lin and asked Sima to go next. Sima wanted to put on a more exciting show than Lin. He was sure his eagle transformation was way cooler than a rabbit. But unlike Lin, the girls didn't gasp at Sima's transformation. A debate started between Sima and Lin, but the teacher stopped them. She said she'd seen all their skills and would make a personal training plan for each student. As a warm-up, she asked them to run a couple of laps. Then she changed her mind and told them to run until they reached the gold physical level. Sima called out Lin for not running, but the hero said he wasn't one of those people below gold level. Hearing this, Han decided to check Lin herself. She took his hand and started reading his aura. She couldn't believe how fast Lin's strength had grown since their last meeting. She told Sima that Lin had reached gold level and didn't need to run. When Sima went to run, Han told Lin about a competition in 2 months. Lin remembered the deputy head had already guaranteed him a spot in it. Han added that someone else in their class was also competing. When Lin asked who the lucky guy was, Han told him about Fatty San. She said San's skills would make him a great support player. The main character thought it would be a team competition and asked the teacher for more details. Han said each team would have 6 people, with 6 individual matches and 1 team match. Each team could bring a few backup players. Han was sure San's strength would be key for Lin in the team competition. She added that San's skill only lasts 2 minutes, but that would be enough. The teacher hoped her students would at least get second place. The hero realized the other side was too strong, so Han gave up early. She said the opponent was Jiang Hu, who had 3 platinum stars and a destruction awakening. According to her, he was the top contender to win. It seemed the deputy head didn't want Lin to compete, but to learn from the best player. Lin's current level was silver, but his physical condition had reached gold. He had 2 months to hit gold level. At the end of the talk, all the students finished their run. Han said that once they improved their physical condition, it would reduce the side effects of other people's skills. Training ended for the day, and Han asked Lin and San to come to the training field that night. The heroes didn't know why, but thought it was about the upcoming competition. When they got to the field, Chen Long, who had 1 platinum star in a space system, called them out. Chen Long scolded them for going to the wrong place. With him was the beauty they'd met on the street. When introducing the new members, Chen Long said he had 1 platinum star, and Lin Yun had 9 gold stars. The main character said he had 4 silver stars and a transformation system. When San talked about his 2 silver stars, Chen Long laughed. The mentor Han arrived and decided to test her students' skills. She wanted to do this so there wouldn't be any mistrust among them because of their abilities. The main character didn't like having to compete with platinum and gold levels. Since San was a support player, he didn't have to fight and could just show his skills. San showed his abilities to Lin Yun, and her whole body glowed as her strength increased. Seeing San boost his power, Chen Long said he'd be useful for their team. Chen Long suggested Lin spar with the lowest ranked backup player. This was Dai Biao, who had a 5 gold star transformation system. The main character still felt uneasy because the power gap was big. Still, he decided to give it his all and strike his opponent. He used his rabbit transformation and did a rabbit kick. During the spar, Dai Biao realized Lin wasn't at silver level. None of the others could believe a guy with silver stars beat Dai Biao. Dai Biao admitted Lin's skills were good but said he'd still lose. Lin pointed out that his opponent had strong defense and his hits didn't do much. Dai Biao used his transformation skill and got much stronger. As the spar went on, Lin found it hard to break through his defense. He decided to find Dai Biao's weak spot quickly to win. When he hit Dai Biao with his skills, his opponent froze. After finding Dai Biao's weakness, the hero kept attacking. Dai Biao used a speed move and hurt Lin. The girl Wang, who had 7 gold stars, was worried about Lin, who was hurt. She went to him and started healing his injuries. After that, the spar between Dai Biao and Lin continued. Lin used his lunar rabbit skill, boosting all his stats by 120%. Then all the girls there cheered for him and wanted him to win. After transforming, the power gap didn't shrink much, but it was enough. The hero hit Dai Biao, knocking him back a distance. Dai Biao crashed into a wall, breaking it, and realized he'd lost. He felt bad for losing to a guy with 4 silver stars. After the spar, the main character offered his hand to help Dai Biao up. Getting up, Dai Biao accepted his defeat. Dai Biao praised Lin, saying his strength and speed weren't enough to beat silver. The girl Wang came back to heal Lin's injuries again. The teacher Han asked everyone if they had any issues with Lin's strength. The team captain Chen Long said without a doubt that Lin was on their team. The hero struggled to handle gold levels and didn't know what to do against platinum. Han gave Lin several spiritual orbs as a reward. She hinted he could contact her anytime for personal training. The next day, Lin realized the orb's effect was too weak, so he gave them to an egg. After that, San called and said Janger had gotten some gold orbs. San couldn't meet his brother because he was busy with his girlfriend. By then, the two had started a romantic relationship. Lin wanted his moment to come and for the goddess to care about him too. He decided his career came first and went to Janger for the orbs. When he got to the spot, a stranger was following him. The man told his boss he'd found the target and was ready to act. The boss told him to wait until the hero was alone. Without anyone watching, Janger gave Lin hundreds of gold and platinum orbs. Sadly, he still hadn't found orbs for the space system. Lin thanked Janger for the help, as getting so many orbs wasn't easy. Janger promised to keep looking for space and thunder skill orbs. When Lin left Janger, he noticed the academy was tailing him. As he stepped outside, the followers got the order to move and surrounded him. Lin played along, acting scared of the situation. It seemed the followers wanted the box with the spiritual orbs. They took the orbs and put the box on the guy's head. After a while, the group dragged Lin to an unknown place. They took the box off his head, and Uncle Wang appeared. The hero wanted to know what tricks this man had up his sleeve. Looking around, Lin saw the same man sitting at a table eating fancy food. The hero told Songye this felt like a kidnapping. Songye offered Lin a deal, saying he saw Lin was a good fighter. For his work, the main character would get half the profits. When Lin didn't agree, Songye told him to think about his tough situation. Then Uncle Wang showed up, giving off a special energy. Lin hadn't noticed before that Uncle Wang seemed like a platinum level with an electric energy system. Songye said the old man was upset about the money he'd lost and needed to fix it. Lin said he didn't have that money anymore because he gave it to Zhanger. Suddenly, a loud explosion happened in the room. It was Qin who came to save her beloved. Lin didn't understand why San brought Qin to such a risky place. The girl was clearly worried about the main character and hugged him. Lin hugged her back and promised not to worry her again. Songye was jealous and asked Uncle Wang to deal with this guy. Uncle Wang used his skills again, and his body sparked with electricity. He realized there was not only his energy in his body, but someone else's too. He blamed Lin, but the young man hadn't done anything. The academy director walked in with San. The director arrived just as Qin and Lin were hugging. The academy director thought he'd been called for something urgent, but realized it was a small matter. Qin asked him not to overthink the hug. Lin couldn't help but take Qin's hand and ask her to be his girlfriend. Before the goddess could answer, Songye got mad at Lin again. He threw a chair at the hero, but the couple stayed hugging, reacting in time to throw the chair back at Songye. After that, Lin proposed to Qin again, and she agreed to be his girlfriend. Lin asked his girlfriend to ignore Songye, saying he'd definitely deal with him. The main character turned to Songye and asked to go back to their earlier talk. Songye was shocked and admitted defeat, saying Lin could take everything he had. The main character said he didn't care about Songye's pathetic life. He just needed money. He took Songye's phone and made an important call. It turned out he called Songye's father, who clearly wasn't happy about it. The young man told him his son was in trouble and asked for 1 million as a ransom. When Qin asked why the amount was so high, Lin said it was his wedding gift. Qin felt embarrassed and said she wasn't ready to be his wife yet. Songye's father said his son's life wasn't worth more than 1 million. He also said he wouldn't pay 1,000 million because he could just have another kid like Songye. Lin started negotiating and offered 900 million for Songye. Director Yang took the phone from Lin and began talking to Songye's father. Songjian was the president of a big company. The director told him that Songye had caused trouble with a student, so there was a price to pay for it. Songjian said he'd pay 2,000 million if this didn't get out. The director agreed and said if it happened again, Song's company would be shut down. After the call, the main character thanked the director for the huge sum. At that moment, Lin got a message saying 2,000 million had been deposited into his account. Songye was upset because his father would never forgive him for this. For Lin and Qin, the situation with Songye was over. Uncle Wang promised Lin they'd meet again. The main character said he'd never be in such a bad spot to face them. Songye and his assistant left the dingy room. The director suggested Lin go home with him. Lin said no, saying he needed to check something. He pulled out a paper bag and told the director he had a dragon egg that absorbed spiritual orbs. In the bag were the orbs Qin had given him. The director asked Lin why he didn't try to hatch the egg faster. The main character said there weren't enough spiritual orbs, as it needed the highest quality ones. He explained the egg could be awakened by his own energy, but it would take too long. The director thought about it and suggested using someone else's energy. The stubborn egg needed a lot of energy, but not necessarily Lin's. Lin decided to try wind and electric power. At that moment, the hero's lightning power appeared. A huge stream of charged particles was aimed at the dragon egg. Then the main character asked the teacher to put a space barrier around it. He used loot from last time, an explosive artifact. Combining strength and explosives, the hero caused a massive blast. After the explosion, the egg changed shape, and a face appeared on it. The hero realized the egg could absorb any energy. He thought about using nuclear energy to hatch the dragon early. At that moment, the director saw Lin was worthy of being his student. The hero and director Yang combined their skills to create nuclear energy. That was enough for the day, and they parted ways. Lin went to his room and started working with spiritual realms. Suddenly, Qin came to talk. Out of nowhere, spiritual energy lifted her skirt. Lin was embarrassed, but then remembered Qin was his girlfriend, so it was okay. He decided to focus on her, and they went to dinner. At the cafe, the hero saw Qin's friend, who greeted her warmly. Qin pressed closer to Lin to make her friend jealous. Qin invited her friend to join them for dinner to ease things. During dinner, Qin's friend was upset with jealousy, realizing she missed her chance with Lin. After dinner, Lin told his girlfriend he'd have to train for 2 months for the competition. Luckily, Qin understood and asked Lin to come back with a win. Lin hugged Qin to say goodbye, but she still wasn't used to it. Qin promised she'd miss him while he was busy. 2 months later, San told Lin they were heading to the capital that day. In 2 months, Lin reached the top of silver but couldn't break through to gold. So, he and San went as backup players. Thanks to serious physical training, Lin was as good as a 3 gold star winner. In the last 2 months, Lin also mastered martial arts, sword skills, and various wushu techniques. The robot got obsessed with martial arts, but it greatly improved Lin's fighting skills. Their girlfriends came to say goodbye before they left. At that moment, Chin and Lin shared a kiss. Lin promised his friend he'd definitely return victorious. When everyone was together, Han asked the guys to do their best and not let the academy down. A few hours later, the plane with the participants landed in the capital, where the competition was held. A reporter immediately approached asking why their team had 2 first-year students. Han told Lin to ignore those comments, as reporters were just trying to stir up emotions. Participants started arriving, and 7 teams gathered. Han asked Lin why he chose their academy. After a short talk, she announced that 8 teams, not 7, would compete this year. Han suggested discussing details at a meeting and warned it wouldn't be easy to deal with these teams. All participants went to the conference room for a meeting. Han announced there would only be 2 rounds this year. The first round would have 6 individual matches and 1 team match, with 5 points for the team match and 1 point per individual match. Based on final points, the top 4 teams would advance to the finals. Han said some participants, like Lin, would fight in individual matches. Lin suggested the matches were like horse races, and the order just needed to be right for a weaker team to score points. Han said the group match with the other students would happen next. She was confident her team could score at least 4 points in the group match. The leader believed San's strength made them nearly unbeatable. Han said she had all the needed info on their opponents. The director ended the meeting and told the students to rest and gain strength before the competition. Everyone left and Lin stayed alone with his thoughts. He called the robot to awaken a skill before the competition. Lin got a D-rank skill for flying vehicles, which was useless to him. With this skill, he could control any type of aircraft. Lin hoped for a skill to boost him to gold. Upset, he went to his room. As he left the conference room, a girl threw herself into his arms. It was Chief Shen, but it wasn't clear why she was there. Shen said she was at the competition for security duties. Suddenly, Lin noticed an unfamiliar guy staring at him behind Shen. This was Shen's nephew, and Lin's main opponent, Zhang Hu. Zhang Hu had 3 platinum stars and a rare destruction-type awakening. Lin remembered that, according to the data, Zhang Hu was his main rival. Shen scolded her nephew and told him to call Lin uncle. Zhang Hu got alarmed and wanted to test Lin's skills first. Shen told him to stop showing off and not be rude to her old friend. To calm Shen, Zhang Hu sighed and called Lin uncle. Lin laughed at the young man and told him to leave because the adults needed to talk. Shen explained Zhang Hu wasn't her real nephew. They just grew up together. Zhang Hu's grandfather was the deputy head of the capital's academy and a friend of Shen's grandfather. She added she came specifically for Lin. She had many questions about helping spiritual animals. She suggested they discuss it at a nearby cafe. San showed up at the same cafe and accidentally saw Lin. At that moment, the hero was with Shen in a slightly awkward position. San started threatening Lin, saying he'd tell Chin everything. Lin explained he was just working with his student. He introduced San to Shen, saying she was his friend from the academy. Shen revealed she was the head of logistics, a special squad, and also Lin's student. Lin decided to stop answering questions for the day, and Shen promised to cheer him on at the competition tomorrow. The next day, the competition began, broadcast online and on TV. Chen Long told his team to prove they were the best. Yang's team watched from the side, clearly unhappy to see them. Yang said Chen Long's team couldn't win a prize 2 years in a row, which made Chen Long mad. A heated talk started between the young men before the competition even began. None of the students stepped in, just watching quietly. The main character stepped out from the crowd, turned to his nephew, and started teaching him how to speak to elders. Shen appeared right away and told her nephew not to make trouble out of nothing. She wished Lin luck and went to cheer for him. The competition host, Liu Mengni, spoke up and invited the first team from the Capital Academy. Next was Chen Long's team from Shanghai. As everyone took their seats, Lin noticed San was nervous. Liu Mengni introduced the judges, including Bo Yang, China's famous Shield, a special guest judge. The main character never thought he'd meet such big names at these competitions. Among the judges was Shanghai Academy's director Zhang Jie, sitting next to Situ Wei, Beijing Academy's director. Situ Wei took the mic and declared the competition open. Fireworks lit up the competition area after his words. It was Lin's first time at a competition this big. The opening match was between Beijing Academy and Jinmen Academy. Jiang Hu charged at his opponent with full force. He was upset after meeting his uncle Lin. His opponent Xiao chose to lose gracefully and shot a firebolt from himself. Jiang Hu called it a weak attempt and said the match was over. When Xiao gave up, he hoped his aunt would see his performance. When he turned and found her in the stands, he saw she was with Lin again. The scene made Jiang Hu furious, and he promised Lin would face consequences. At that moment, Lin felt this hostile energy. In the second round, one participant gave up after a strong hit. Han thought Jiang Hu was the only platinum winner on their team. She explained they'd face 2 platinum opponents. The opponents were stronger than expected, and Han gave up hope. After a while, the 4th match ended with a win for Jin Academy. Like the earlier rounds, Han said only this team had platinum players and gold was the limit for others. In the next match, Lin Yun from Chen Long's team fought and won. During the fight, her opponent realized her physical strength was platinum level. Lin saw that Yun's skills made her nearly unbeatable against someone of her level. After her win, she approached Lin and asked for a confession. She wished him luck, saying his match would come soon. During the competition, Lin tried to learn a new useful skill but was given a costume instead. The host announced the score was 1 point ahead, but Shanghai's team was still behind. He said Fan, with 7 gold stars in the Thunder system, would fight next. His opponent was the main character, Lin, with silver. The host thought Shanghai's team gave up by sending such a weak player, but Lin was confident. Everyone found it odd that the main character entered the ring with a black backpack. It turned out he brought his dragon egg, which hadn't fully awakened. His opponent thought Lin was foolish for fighting with an egg in his hands. Lin, per the rules, could hold anything and only needed to show his physical strength. The host confirmed this and started the match. Before it began, Lin praised his dragon egg and promised to feed it soon. Fan wasn't interested in fighting Lin and asked him to give up without a fight. Lin said he wouldn't surrender and told Fan to attack first. Refusing to back down, Fan decided to push Lin off the field, raised his hand, and launched a thunder attack. All the electrified lightning bolts shot toward the dragon egg and didn't harm Lin at all. His opponent was sure he could take Lin down with one hit, but he was wrong. He didn't understand why the crowd was silent and not cheering for his win. When he turned around, he saw Lin holding his egg, which had absorbed the captured thunder waves. Then Fan used his skills again, but they were useless against the dragon egg. That's when Fan realized the egg was blocking the electricity. He tried to boost his attack's power, but it did nothing. Lin held the egg in front of the electrified waves to make sure not a drop was wasted for the baby's growth. Lin told his opponent that all his waves were just regular lightning because the egg could absorb any burst. Fan turned to the judge and said Lin was cheating and that the darn egg should be taken away. The judges talked and told the contestant there were no rules against using eggs. Lin stopped and asked Fan to prove he was cheating. Fan had no proof, and his face showed frustration because Lin had fed the egg with his skills. At that moment, everyone at Shanghai Academy was cheering for Lin and his weird egg. Chin, who missed her boyfriend like crazy, also watched what was happening. Fan was sure he'd finally beat Lin because his physical strength was at gold level. He had no idea his opponent was almost better than him in skill. Despite his silver level, Fan suggested Lin continue the fight without using skills. Lin agreed and asked Fan not to use his thunder system anymore, or he'd grab the egg. Everyone was excited to see the contestants fight without their skills. When Fan threw a punch at Lin, the hero saw his chance. He hit Fan and realized Lin's skills were too strong. A few minutes later, the host announced Lin had beaten Fan without using any skills. Fan was upset because a silver level guy defeated him. In the team match, Tian Academy admitted defeat, so Shanghai Academy won with a score of 8-3. The next match was between Gu Academy and Jing Academy. Han told Lin to pay attention to Gu Academy's captain, who was platinum level. Han heard this girl had awakened light angel skills. Wang Fu was a platinum level light angel. After checking her out, Lin realized she wouldn't be easy to beat. In Gu Academy's team, all members were girls. Lin didn't get why these girls would put their strongest player in a one-on-one match. It turned out that during the match, the girl could use not only her skills but also healing. The fight took a long time to end because the girl was so strong. Sadly, her opponent gave up and the light angel won. Right after the results were announced, Wang Fu used her healing skill and fixed all her injuries. Then Gu Academy won the team match, ending the first day of the competition. Capital Academy was in first place, while Shanghai Academy and Gu Academy were tied for second. Han turned to her students and said they had a lot to discuss at the 7 p.m. meeting. When Lin wanted to rest, he saw Shen in front of him. Shen thanked the hero for the fight and wanted to ask about animals. While Lin answered her questions, he suddenly felt off. He thought his body was telling him it was time to break through to gold. He pulled out a spiritual orb and decided to absorb it to make the breakthrough. He did it, reaching 2 gold stars. Not only did the hero's spiritual power increase, but new skills appeared too. On top of that, Lin was advised to use cosmic system energy to form an invisible shield around his body. Lin guessed he'd finally awakened the thunder system. San felt upset for being the only participant left with silver stars. Han suggested getting back to the competition and discussing the teams they needed to beat. She said if Gu Academy kept going like this, they wouldn't survive meeting Shanghai Academy. The girls at Gu Academy were strong, but despite being platinum, they had weaknesses. Han said these girls couldn't fully use platinum, and once their top player was out, the rest would be easy to handle. Han asked her students to win at least one match. She told them not to go all out and just aim for the top 4 for now. During his break, the main character decided to call his girlfriend Chin. When Chin picked up, her phone accidentally fell, catching her in the shower, and what Lin saw surprised him. He moved on and told her he'd broken through to gold. Oddly, Chin got mad at Lin and abruptly ended the call. The next day, the team competition continued. The rules changed, and now participants couldn't use weapons without permission. If someone needed a weapon, they could ask and take one available at the stadium. Lin realized these changes were because of him feeding his egg. Before the match, he decided to wake the robot and accept today's skill. The robot gave him a C-rank aura enhancement skill. He'd waited a long time for this skill. When he got it, he didn't need it anymore. Still, he decided to use it and activate it to boost his aura. At that moment, he hit a 3 gold star breakthrough. Han saw his progress and couldn't believe she was working with such a strong student. Today's first opponents were Lin and Chen Ji. Lin asked the host if he could bring his protection, but she said no. Lin's opponent, Chen, had 9 gold stars and a raccoon transformation. He decided to fight Lin using sword skills and was sure he'd win. Luckily, thanks to the system, Lin had learned many martial arts. Seeing this, Chen asked his body to restore the needed skills. Chen rushed at Lin, but the hero didn't care about these attacks. Lin's calm made his opponent angry and nervous. Because of Chen's nerves, Lin landed a precise hit and knocked the weapon from his hands. Then Chen focused on his feelings and turned into a raccoon. Looking at his opponent, Lin felt puzzled. He decided to respond the same way and became a lunar rabbit. The girls in the stands were only crazy about the rabbit and ignored the raccoon. The hero didn't know his opponent had a 7-attack combo as a special skill. It didn't work, as Lin countered his attacks with one hand movement. Lin waved his hand and sent his opponent flying into the wall. He dropped the rabbit transformation and decided to end the match there. This time, even the host was charmed by Lin and his actions. She announced Lin was the winner of this round. Since Jin Academy skipped the next round, Shanghai Academy became the winner. When the main character left the arena, girls approached him with romantic offers. At that moment, the judges were discussing today's participants. The academy director kept asking his colleagues to watch Lin closely despite his low level. He explained this guy went from silver to gold in just 3 months. One judge said, based on his aura, Lin now had 3 gold stars. The director was confident his student would surprise everyone next time. At that moment, the hero struggled to shake off the rabbit fans. He went back to his room and crashed on the bed. He had no matches tomorrow, so he could rest properly. Suddenly, Director Yang came to talk. Lin found it odd that the teacher came so late. The director started talking about world competitions held every 4 years. The hero knew these weren't broadcast live, so no one knew the details. The director explained that academy competitions were very different from world ones. No one knew the details because the rules changed often, and the fight scenes could be too intense and hard to watch. The director also shared a secret. People don't always survive these competitions. The survival rate at the World Championship was only 20%. There'd been lots of debate about holding these events, but everyone agreed that without this competition, it would show up in other ways. Lin realized the results of these competitions were used to share benefits among countries. The director was sure this didn't involve Lin yet because he was too young, but that could change. He hoped one day his student would join the world competitions. Yang said Lin's skills made him think of the space system and global competitions. He said the world championship was 6 months away, and Lin's progress and skills would boost the team's strength. He didn't want to pressure his students because world competitions were risky. With Lin's current strength, there was a good chance he wouldn't come back from this event. Lin thought about it and said he'd join the competition and was ready to give everything for his country since he grew up in an orphanage. The director thanked Lin for his choice and said he was worthy of being his personal student. After this competition, he'd personally train Lin to improve his survival chances in the world competitions. For now, the director asked Lin to make sure not to lose face in front of the other judges tomorrow. Lin said he wasn't in the team competition tomorrow and would be off. Then the director asked him to show up the day after. He said he'd talk to Han to include Lin in the team. The next day, the host announced the start of the match between Shanghai Academy and Gu Academy, with Yang Yi as the main judge. The hero was curious about what his master had planned and why he was invited. The girls from Gu Academy stepped into the arena, confident in their win. Capital Academy was worried, sure something was off, and they needed to deal with these girls fast. Lin Chin, who had an ice system, listened to Zhang Hu and shot ice at the beauties. The Capital Academy leader expected the opposing team's captain to try attacking him. Then Gu Academy's leader ordered her team to step back. The girls obeyed their queen and moved to a safe distance. The other team thought the girls were giving up, but Yang was sure the goddess was planning something. Then Gu Academy's captain clapped her hands and created a light judgment skill. In simple words, it was the lost sword of a great god. Its fall to the ground threw all participants far back and cracked the floor. Lin could have caught the sword, but it was literally blown away. Judge Yang announced the favorite was losing to Gu Academy by 1 point. After the match, the hero couldn't forget the god's sword stuck in the stadium's arena. He told his girlfriend, who luckily saw it live on air. During their talk, Lin remembered his role in the World Championship. He asked Chin if she'd find a new boyfriend if he didn't make it. Chin got mad and said she'd definitely find a new boyfriend. So Lin decided not to tell her about the world competition. He took back his words and said he'd live a long life and teach their kids basic spiritual practices. Hearing this, Chin was speechless and hung up. Suddenly, Han approached the hero. She thanked him for his great performance in the last match and signed him up for the next round. The hero realized Director Yang was behind this. Han laughed and asked Lin to take care wherever he was. The next day, the hero stood in the stadium arena, waiting for his opponent's move. Lin's opponent was a serious platinum-level player who could take him down. This guy asked Lin to turn into a white rabbit, but the hero refused. Lin firmly decided he wouldn't become an animal or lose. No one expected Lin to use thunder skills at that moment, and nobody could have guessed he had them. Lin focused his power and covered himself with a charge of thunder and lightning. His opponent was fooled, thinking Lin only had transformation skills and nothing else. The hero unleashed a heavenly strike on his opponent, who was totally confused. When Lin used both the thunder and space systems, the judge's jaws dropped in shock. Now Han understood why the director wanted Lin to sign up for today's match. Even Lin's team couldn't figure out how he had so many skills. Han calmed her students and said this ace up their sleeve put them one step closer to victory. One spectator named Shindao called a serious guy. He told the guys to get ready for action because it looked like they'd need to take Lin out. At that moment, the TV announced Lin had won the match. The whole crowd stood up clapping and snapping photos of Lin, and Director Yang stepped into the arena. This time, the hero was beyond thrilled about his win. The director invited the student to join him for a talk. Using a space transformation, Yang touched Lin, and they were whisked to an office. A third person appeared with them, and Lin got nervous about the situation. The judges praised Lin for his perfect mix of skills. They wanted to convince Lin to join their team, saying he wouldn't reach great heights with the academy director. The director believed no one but him could teach Lin how to use the space system. One judge told the others to hush and get to work. He explained that since Lin had shown all his skills, his life was now in danger. From that day, a hunt was on for him, but the director promised to assign personal security. The director called for the security guard, and Shen walked into the office. She promised she'd be with Lin 24/7 from now on. She put handcuffs on him and chained them to her hand. She figured while guarding him, she could ask all the questions bothering her. Luckily, Lin Yun came to his rescue and freed him from the cuffs. The heroes rushed to the meeting where Han was already waiting. Han announced their rival wasn't simple, but reaching the finals was still very possible. She shared the lineup for team and individual matches, and Lin was in both. The girl picked the strongest, but the opponent's level was still higher. The girl believed that with Lin's help, they'd win and become the top academy. Shanghai Academy's leader urged her participants to aim for victory. The next day, the host announced the competition's start and invited the best teams to the arena. Right now, Shanghai Academy is 2 points behind Beijing Academy. In the first match, the capital team's leader faced Chen Long. This was their third meeting, and each time Yang Zhang reminded Chen Long of defeat's bitter taste. Chen Long was sure that even if he lost, his team would get revenge on their rivals. A real fight of the century broke out between the team leaders. The capital team's leader gave off a fierce aura. Yang's skill started to wear down Chen Long's body, and if it kept up, Chen Long would face serious trouble. After thinking it over, an exhausted Chen Long admitted defeat. He was certain his team still had every chance to win. In the second round, two platinum-level beauties faced off. The capital team used ice and snow techniques. Luckily, Lin Yun dodged it and caught her opponent off guard. Surprisingly, the Capital Academy participant gave up at the start of the fight. The host announced that Shanghai Academy won this round. The host decided to call out the stars of the event, naming Lin, Qin, and Ji Han. Lin needed to keep his team together, break the tie, and lead them to victory. His opponent was Ji Han, who had 9 gold stars. Ji Han made his first move, shooting thorny rose stems from his hands. The hero carefully stepped around them and hit him from behind. Ji Han didn't see it coming and crashed into the wall at high speed. He passed out, and the host announced Lin as the winner. The defeated opponent shed a few tears because Lin's hit was so strong. All individual matches were over, and Shanghai Academy was ahead by 2 points. The host announced a group round was coming up with multiple players. The host named his favorites, almost all of whom had platinum or 8 to 9 gold stars. Their leader didn't think they'd lose to Shanghai until now. When the host called out Shanghai Academy, Yang told Lin to give up. Shanghai's team leader ordered his members to prepare for an attack. Yang told his team to stay alert because he felt the opposing team was planning something. At that moment, the strongest energy from Shanghai's team spread across the area in support of San. The leader ordered his players to charge at Beijing's team. Team's leader told his members to handle the rest while he wanted to face Lin himself. Suddenly, San appeared in front of him. San said his mission was done and he could step back from competing. He was out of the game, which angered Jian since the other team was now short-handed. When Jian thought about his team, he saw them all knocked out on the ground. While Jian tried to attack San, Lin Yun took on her old acquaintance. The hero easily dealt with everyone else. Jin promised Lin he'd still surprise him and his team before the match ended. Shanghai's leader, Chen Long, ordered his team to attack immediately before Yang's buff activated, but his words fell flat because Yang's skill kicked in. An incredible energy radiated from him. The energy was so intense it shook the main characters. Even Lin felt this force was unbelievably strong and he might not withstand it. Jin was sure he'd won and asked the referee to announce the match results. Lin's team decided to hold a final meeting to plan against this guy, but suddenly everyone saw Jian's energy get absorbed and neutralized. It was the hero who didn't let Jian's earlier attack beat him. He told the guy the competition was still on because he was still standing in the ring. The judges told Jian that Lin was right, and thanks to his skill, he stayed standing during the attack. He teleported upward, avoiding Jian's strike. According to the rules, this was fair. Jin forgot his opponent could teleport. The hero had plenty more tricks and strategies to win. Lin realized that if the fight dragged on, he'd be the first to run out of energy. He wished it was night so he could use the Lunar Lion's power to have a shot at winning. The hero didn't care if he won or not. His main goal was not to give up in this tough spot. He decided to try anyway, and teleported into a lunar rabbit and lion. Even the host fell over in shock at another of Lin's transformations. With fierce energy in its eyes, Lin asked the robot to calculate how long he could last using all his strength. The assistant told Lin the skill would last 2 minutes, but if he saved energy, it could last 10. The hero chose to act in energy-saving mode. His first attack in this mode did serious damage to Jian. Jian realized Lin's strength was at least platinum level. He decided not to waste time and wanted to attack Lin quickly to end this challenge. The hero used the space system and activated a space shield. The hero's strength matched his enemies. Jian's skill nearly broke Lin's space shield. One more attack like that and it'd be over for the hero. Seeing Lin in trouble, his teammates called for the coach. Han thought Lin was strong and believed in his power. Jian told his opponent to admit defeat and end this nonsense. Lin had no plans to give up and believed the battle was just starting. He created a portal to trick his opponent. When Jian realized this, he shot an electric charge at Lin. Lin dodged his opponent again and used his portal skills. Jian was mad because he couldn't get to Lin. Now he was constantly in the hero's sights and couldn't do anything about it. Then the hero caught him off guard and landed a rabbit kick. It was only today that Jian realized he'd never dealt with a space system before. The power gap was too big and his attacks only did minor damage to Jian. Plus, Lin was almost out of strength. Jian was sure Lin's spiritual energy was nearly gone. He rushed at the hero, thinking he was about to win. Jian was mad because Lin just walked away without letting him land a single hit. He was so angry he slammed the ground, sparking his electrification skills. Jian told Lin to wait because they'd definitely meet in the finals. Lin laughed at Jian and said he might not make it to the finals because Gu Academy's girls were too strong. Jian won this round, but not by much. The team leader told Lin this match was needed for points, as they'd definitely win the next round. The girl Wang approached Lin again, worried about his health. As she checked on him, Lin passed out and fell to the ground. When he came to, everyone saw his nose was bleeding. The healers started helping Lin recover and heal him. Leader Han explained that Lin's spiritual energy was drained. When Lin fully woke up, a girl from Gu Academy approached his team, turned to Lin, and asked to talk privately. The talk happened with Han present, and the girl asked Lin for a favor. She wanted him to admit defeat in the individual match between their academies. She explained that Lin's skills could block hers, and she wanted to secure a win. Han ended the talk, saying their team would definitely think about the decision. The Gu Academy girl said she had one more request for Lin. She was actually a fan and came not for this proposal, but to take a photo with him. Lin agreed to her request, and then more girls approached him. This was all broadcast live on TV, and Chin was watching. Lin realized if his girlfriend saw that video, they'd break up for good. He decided to draw today's skill, and the robot congratulated him on getting a rank 200 skill. This skill would alert Lin to spiritual energy changes within a 100-meter radius. Now no suspicious person could get close to him. He activated the skill and felt strong spiritual energy vibrations in the captain's room. Learning the skill was interrupted when Shen showed up. Lin invited Shen to come with him and test his skill. On the way, she told Lin she knew someone might be after him. The hero said he planned to use his power to draw the snake out of its hole. Lin joked with Shen, saying they were being watched right now. When Shen looked behind Lin, she saw 2 girls. Lin said they'd been followed since the start of their trip. He decided to find a quieter spot to deal with the girls without prying eyes. After some distance, the girls approached Lin and said they were fans who just wanted a photo with him, but Lin insisted they were following him on someone's orders. He said their hands looked like those of weapon handlers. Lin also noticed one girl had a dagger on her leg, and her eyes showed X-ray skill. After hearing his observations, Shen fully agreed these girls weren't who they claimed to be. The girls stopped hiding since the hero had completely exposed them. They were a 6-star platinum snow leopard and a 5-star platinum shadow cat. One pulled out a bloody dagger and started threatening Lin, making him nervous. Lin was their target today, and they needed to catch him by any means. Shen told Lin to be more careful and wanted to handle it herself. When both girls attacked her at once, Shen began transforming into a demon. She countered the poison from their daggers and was ready to take them down. Using her dangerous skill, she knocked them to the ground. The academy director appeared right away and told Lin to hand over these mercenaries. He insisted Lin return to the academy immediately because his life was at risk. Before leaving, the hero decided to take the mercenaries' dagger for himself. At that moment, Shen got a 4 gold star breakthrough. Lin and Shen headed to the participants' dorm. The hero got worried because his room's door was open. When he entered, he saw Chin sitting on his bed holding a gift. He thought she missed him, but she said she came to cheer for the academy. As a gift for her boyfriend, she made cookies with his portrait. Lin wanted to hug her, but she refused since they weren't alone. Lin introduced Chin to Shen, who said she was the head of the special department. Shen added she was responsible for Lin's safety during the competition. Chin started to suspect her boyfriend was in danger. The hero tried to downplay it so she wouldn't worry again. Lin hugged Chin and promised nothing bad would happen to him. He said he'd be fine before their wedding, but Chin refused to marry him. Suddenly, they heard a noise suggesting someone was trying to enter the room. It was Director Yang who wanted to talk to the hero. During the talk, the director said the mercenaries were part of a group called Black Rose. All members of this group were women tied to high-profile crimes. Today, the heroes reached platinum level, but this group had even stronger girls. The director added that before they could uncover anything, they were poisoned. Lin realized there was a traitor among them, as the girls always escaped punishment. The director agreed and said the enemy had infiltrated their circle, so they needed to stay on guard. Before the talk ended, Chin told her boyfriend she was heading back to the academy. She explained her frustration, saying Lin needed rest before tomorrow's finals. The hero no longer cared about the competition, as protecting his girlfriend from mercenaries was more important. He promised himself he'd work to get stronger from that day on. The next day, the final competition began, and the host announced the team lineups. Beijing Academy and Gu Academy would compete first. 1,000 viewers sat in front of their TVs watching this epic battle. If Gu Academy won, the heroes' team had a good shot at winning the whole competition. Plus, with the new rank 200 skill, their chances grew. The Gu Academy girl used her light judgment spiritual skill again, hurling a golden sword to the ground. Xianggu wasn't simple and countered with a dark star skill. As their skills clashed, all viewers noticed Jian had gotten even stronger. It'd be tough for the hero if Jian won and kept fighting him. Jian made a sneaky move and attacked the Gu Academy girl. The crowd cheered, and the host congratulated Beijing Academy for earning their spot in the finals. Neither Lin nor Han were thrilled about facing Beijing's team. Lin realized his team was weaker than Beijing's. Suddenly, he got curious and asked Han about today's date. She said it was the 15th, and Lin realized the moon was nearly full. The host announced Gu Academy took 3rd place, and the remaining teams would face off in the finals. In the first match, team captains Chen Long and Yang would compete. Han was sure the end was near, and their victory wasn't far off. At that moment, Chen Long Lin unleashed an explosive skill and charged at the young man. The two met face to face using their best skills. Yang announced he'd achieved another major breakthrough just days before the finals. Right then, Yang decided to test his new skills on his opponent. In response, Chen Long focused his strength and used the spiritual tripod skill. Han's team thought it was better to admit defeat, but Han had faith in Lin. She knew if Chen Long gave up, he'd never forgive himself. This fight was definitely not going to be easy, because Yang's advantage was his physical strength. Yang's hit knocked both opponents to the ground, and they couldn't keep fighting. Jian was thrilled that Chen Long had so much power. The host announced that, for the first time ever, the competition ended in a tie. The team's healer realized their captain couldn't join the team battle. Chen Long apologized to his teammates for being too impulsive, but Lin calmed him down. The hero said that as long as he was there, their team would never lose. Hearing this, Yang said Lin was getting too confident. Since Lin didn't back down, Yang was determined to teach him a lesson. Lin promised he'd handle Yang and prove his strength soon. Han thanked Lin for not being scared of the competition and being ready to go all the way. Lin turned to the girl Chin and asked her to take charge. He had a plan to take over the other team's leadership. His teammates didn't believe he could take on Jian. The host announced the game was open, and the team round began. In this round, everyone was ready to follow Lin as team captain. This time, the hero was well prepared, and the other participants had to support him a bit. With a few moves, Lin's team took out the extra players. Their main target was the other team's leader. Jian Hongsan helped the hero gain a glory boost to strengthen his attacks. Jin was sure Lin couldn't handle him, even in beast form. In response, the hero stuck out his tongue and said everything would go by his rules. Jian got mad at the joke and used his destruction skill. Lin tricked Jian again and used his teleportation skill. While Jian scolded him for it, Lin looked outside and saw a full moon. He used his transformation skill and got a 500% boost to all his abilities. Seeing the power surge, Jian rushed at Lin, but Lin dodged carefully. Lin proudly said his speed was too fast for Jian to keep up. The hero unleashed his cosmic power at his opponent. Jin used his own power to try to stop Lin's flow. Luckily, the hero's attack worked, and Jin got badly hurt with a deep cut on his back. All the judges thought Lin was faking and tricking everyone with his silver level. Lin's team was thrilled that even a platinum level couldn't handle him. Jian didn't get how his opponent got so strong in just a few days. Lin offered Jian the chance to give up or keep up this pointless fight. The hero hit Jian again, and he was clearly struggling. Lin decided to finish his opponent and threw him far with his super skill. Completely worn out, Yin crashed into a wall and passed out. Lin approached him carefully and announced his victory. For the first time in years, someone had beaten Jian. Thanks to this round, Shanghai Academy took first place in the competition. While everyone was happy, Director Yang worried that Lin had shown his skills too soon. He was sure the hunt for Lin would now be even fiercer. The director's group decided to request special protection for Lin when he returned. Qianlong thanked Lin for the win and said Lin would be team captain next year. Lin went to the award ceremony, took the trophy, and said it was their shared victory. At this point, the academy competition was over. The host announced the event would end with a valuable prize being awarded. This win had been Qianlong's dream for years. As a reward, besides the trophy, the team got orbs worth 5 million. Each person got an orb, and Lin was curious about which one he received. When he lifted the cloth on the tray, he saw his orb was missing. The judges told Lin they'd give him the orb later when they found the right one. As the team started to leave, the host said another prize was added this year, a Best Player award. The hero immediately thought this prize would be his for contributing the most to the victory. The host called Lin and invited a weapons expert. The diamond-level weapons expert was Feng Peng. They'd never met the hero before, but Lin felt his face looked familiar. When Feng gave Lin the orb for winning the nomination, Lin heard his familiar voice. Lin remembered the bandit situation and realized this was the traitor's voice. Lin decided not to rush since he didn't know much about this guy. He planned to talk about it with his teacher, the academy director.
Then, Qianlong wraps his arm around Lin and cheerfully suggests that since the competition is over, they should all go celebrate together. Lin agrees with a smile but mentions he needs to catch up with his master first, so he tells the group to go ahead without him. After the others leave, Lin turns to Dean Ouyang and says he has something important to discuss. The dean nods and mentions that he has a special reward arranged for Lin regarding the spatial item, which Lin happily accepts. Then Lin brings up the sensitive topic of the mole. The dean immediately gets serious, realizing it's not safe to talk there, and leads Lin to a quieter spot because a guy named Feng Bing is actually hiding nearby and listening to everything. Feng Bing watches them walk away and quickly texts his contact, reporting that the plan has changed and the targets are moving, so they need to switch to observation mode for now. Later, in the referee's office, Lin stands with the dean and 2 other seniors. He explains that he's sure Feng Bing is the mole because he recognized his voice and build from a previous encounter involving stolen data. The dean admits he always suspected a leak but lacked proof. The other senior points out that Feng Bing is in a high position, so they can't just grab him without solid evidence. They decide the best plan is to watch him closely and let him lead them to the bigger enemies. Lin and the dean then leave the building and run into Shen Xing, who decides to tag along for the party. Feng Bing sees the 3 of them leave and calls his team again, telling them to hold off on any attacks and just keep a close watch to avoid getting caught. At the restaurant, the team welcomes Lin warmly. Lin sits down next to Chin and teases her a bit about saving the seat for him, which makes her blush and act shy. Just then, Shen Xing steps in and sternly asks another guy to switch seats with her so she can guard her master properly. Just as they settle in, servers roll out a cart with roasted lamb. Shen Xing sniffs the air and whispers to Lin that the food is dangerous. Lin uses his special vision and confirms the threat, also noticing that one of the servers is hiding a weapon. He stays calm, but realizes these enemies are actually bold enough to try something in public. Lin stands up and makes a toast to signal the dean. The dean catches the hint instantly and unleashes his power, creating a barrier around the table to trap the servers. He scolds them for trying to pull a stunt like this. One of the servers freezes up, and when Lin calls her out, she refuses to talk. Before they can stop her, she bites down on a capsule and ends it right there to avoid capture. Lin stops the other server from doing the same. The dean tells the regular staff to leave and dismisses the remaining server, knowing she will lead them to her base. The other servers hurry away, leaving the group to deal with the situation. Lin suggests that if they follow the fleeing server, they will definitely find something important, and the dean agrees immediately. He tells Shen Xing to stay behind and protect the students while he takes Lin to track the target. Meanwhile, the server jumps off the roof and calls her boss, reporting that the mission failed and her partner is gone. Her boss orders her to pull back to the base to avoid getting caught, so she heads toward a residential area. Lin and the dean track her from a distance. Lin asks if they should call for backup to wipe out the whole base, but the dean refuses. He wants to handle it solo, to show Lin just how terrifying the spatial system can be. The dean tells Lin to wait outside until the area is clear. He teleports inside with confidence, but almost immediately, screams erupt from the building. It turns out the enemies were in the middle of a bath. The dean rushes back out instantly, sporting a bump on his head and looking totally embarrassed. He complains that he didn't expect them to be bathing at 4 a.m. Lin tries not to laugh at the situation. The dean decides to wait a moment so the enemies can get dressed and armed. Once he's sure they are ready to fight, he goes back in. The enemies spot him and open fire, but the dean simply freezes time, trapping the entire building in a spatial barrier. Lin walks in through a portal and is amazed to see everyone frozen in place like a wax museum. The dean explains that a special squad will come to arrest everyone later, so Lin should look around for clues in the meantime. Lin agrees and starts exploring, hoping to find some loot. He spots a loose tile, lifts it, and finds a hidden staircase. He heads down and is shocked to find a massive stash of gold, weapons, and rare items. He decides to pocket a good amount for himself before anyone notices. Further inside, Lin finds a curtain hiding a secret door and senses many people behind it. The dean joins him and breaks the door down. Inside, they are horrified to find dozens of little girls locked in cages. The dean realizes the enemy organization is raising these orphans to be agents. Lin is furious at the cruelty and rushes to open the cages, telling the kids they are safe. However, the children are terrified and refuse to move, thinking it's just another trick or test before they get punished again. Lin tries to offer a lollipop to break the ice, but one girl stops her friend from taking it, warning her not to be fooled. Seeing this, the dean uses his power to drop a few of the defeated guards from the floor above, right in front of them. This proves to the kids that the bad guys have actually lost. Lin smiles and tells them the bad guys are beaten. He asks the girls where their parents are, and they explain they are orphans who were sold out by their orphanage director during a field trip. The dean is disgusted and immediately calls for a nationwide investigation into all orphanages to root out the corruption. Lin feels terrible for the kids and hands the dean a note, explaining that he wants to donate his savings to build new, safe orphanages so these children have a real home and education. The dean is moved by the gesture and promises to handle it. Lin then sits down with the children and comforts a little girl, telling her that he was an orphan too and that she is very brave. The little girl finally believes him and gives him a big hug, thanking him for his kindness. Lin feels a bit awkward in the moment but is interrupted when a man approaches calling for the dean. It's Sun Lei, the leader of the Azure Dragon team. He thanks the dean for the intel and reports that they've launched a nationwide investigation into all orphanages, bringing the situation under control. He suggests they head back to avoid suspicion. Lin smiles, satisfied that his plan worked, and agrees it's time to close the trap. The next day in the conference room, the dean tells Lin that he and another leader, Situ, are finalizing the plan to catch the mole. Lin takes the opportunity to quickly use his system to upgrade his skills before anyone notices. The system grants him gun mastery, making him an expert with all firearms. Lin is thrilled, realizing the system gave him exactly what he needed since he has a stash of weapons. He also asks if he can absorb more spirit beads, and the system confirms he can handle up to 3. Excited, Lin absorbs a lightning spirit bead he won earlier. The absorption is a success, pushing his rank to Golden 5-star and granting him a powerful new skill called Thunder God's Spear. Just then, Shen Xing walks in and accidentally touches him while electricity is still flowing around his body. She gets a mild shock and yelps in surprise. Lin quickly steps back, apologizes, and explains he was just testing a skill. Shen Xing, a bit flustered, tells him everyone is ready. Meanwhile, Feng Peng is in his office, panicking. He tries to call his contacts, but they've gone silent. Realizing he might be exposed, he pulls a special gun from his drawer, a new spirit weapon he stole. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. He hides the gun behind his back and opens the door to find the dean, Lin, and Shen Xing. The dean cheerfully invites Feng Peng to a farewell lunch. Feng Peng tries to decline, suspicious of their sudden friendliness, but the dean insists, practically dragging him along. Feng Peng reluctantly agrees, feeling trapped. They drive out to a secluded spot, and the car suddenly stops. Everyone gets out, and Feng Peng, now very nervous, points out there's no restaurant nearby. One of the seniors, Tu Dui, finally drops the act and calls him a traitor. Feng Peng tries to play innocent, but Lin steps forward and mocks him, referencing the bribe money Feng Peng offered the mercenaries. Realizing he's caught, Feng Peng pulls out his hidden gun and threatens to take someone down with him. The dean quickly puts up a spatial shield, but Feng Peng fires, and the bullet surprisingly punches right through the barrier. It heads straight for Lin. Shen Xing tries to jump in front to save Lin, but Lin pulls her back and uses his own defensive skill to block the shot. The impact causes a massive explosion of smoke and dust. Lin steps out of the dust unharmed, coolly remarking that the weapon is indeed dangerous. Feng Peng tries to fire again, but the dean and Tu Dui teleport behind him and attack simultaneously. Tu Dui hits him with a powerful lightning strike, forcing him to his knees. Feng Peng drops the gun and tries to reach for it, but Lin steps on his hand, stopping him. Lin picks up the weapon and inspects it, noting its power. He explains that this spirit gun uses energy instead of bullets. Thanks to his new gun mastery skill, he instantly knows how to use it. He aims at a tree and fires, blowing a massive hole through the trunk. He's impressed by the power, but notes the downside is the recharge time. Feng Peng is shocked and asks how Lin figured out how to use the spirit martial weapon so quickly. Tu Duwei steps in and asks Feng Peng why he betrayed his country and his teacher, especially since old Zhang always treated him well. Feng Peng admits that while his teacher was good to him, the enemy offered him a life of luxury and massive amounts of money that he couldn't refuse. The dean asks if money is really that important. Lin chimes in from the back, saying that yes, money is actually very important, which earns him a glare and a scolding from the dean. The dean turns back to Feng Peng, telling him he is being foolish but offering a lighter punishment if he cooperates. However, Feng Peng suddenly bites down on a hidden capsule, and red liquid spills from his mouth as he tries to end his life right there. Lin realizes it's poison, but before anyone else can react, Shen Xing rushes over. She uses her special ability to turn her hand black and literally sucks the poison out of Feng Peng's body, inhaling the toxic smoke like it's a treat. Feng Peng wakes up confused, wondering why he is still alive. Lin explains that his students saved him. Shen Xing teases Feng Peng, offering to do it again, but Lin tells her to stop. Feng Peng realizes he has no choice now. He agrees to confess everything, but on one condition: they must let him end his life afterwards so his family won't be targeted by the organization. The dean agrees to the terms. Feng Peng reveals that a mysterious caller ordered him to silence the captured assassins. He also explains that the enemy wants to stop their country from making spiritual weapons because a rival nation controls the essential mines needed to produce them. Having said his piece, Feng Peng swallows another pill to finish the job. Shen Xing tries to rush forward to eat the poison again, but Lin holds her back, telling her to let him go this time. The dean steps in to handle the body with a heavy heart. Suddenly, Shen Xing starts glowing with purple energy. It turns out that absorbing the potent poison helped her break through to Platinum 6-star. Tu Duwei watches in shock, calling both Lin and Shen Xing monsters for leveling up so fast. The next day, the team heads back home on a plane. Lin is happily daydreaming about seeing Qin again, when suddenly, two men jump up with weapons and announce a hijack. Lin thinks it's such a cliché situation, until his system suddenly triggers an alert. It grants him a bomb defusal skill, which makes Lin panic as he realizes there is an actual explosive hidden on board. Lin uses his X-ray vision and spots the bomb hidden under a sink. He quickly whispers the situation to the dean. The dean moves instantly, using his speed to tie up the two hijackers before they even know what hit them. Lin rushes to the bathroom to check the bomb but sees the timer has only 5 seconds left. Knowing he can't defuse it in time, Lin grabs the bomb and runs back into the cabin, yelling for the dean to open a spatial barrier. The dean instantly creates a dimensional pocket. Lin throws the bomb inside and tosses his pet egg in there as well. The bomb detonates safely inside the separate dimension, and the egg absorbs the blast energy. Looking quite full and happy afterward, Lin breathes a sigh of relief that everyone is safe, then turns his gaze toward the terrified hijackers with a look that says they are in big trouble. Lin glares at the two captured men and demands to know who gave the orders, warning them that things will get ugly if they lie. Terrified, the men kneel and confess that some low-level local thugs put them up to it, claiming it was a chance to get rich. Dean Ouyang is annoyed, realizing these guys were just pawns used by someone else. Lin looks to his master for advice, but suddenly the plane shakes violently. The chief flight attendant makes a frantic announcement over the speakers, saying there's an emergency in the cockpit and asking if anyone knows how to fly. Lin gets frustrated, thinking this flight is cursed. He tells the dean he knows how to fly and rushes forward. The dean is shocked, realizing Lin wasn't just bragging before, while Shen admires her master's hidden talents. A flight attendant explains they heard loud noises and lost contact with the pilots. Lin steps up and opens the cockpit door. The attendant collapses in fear because inside, the captain and CO pilot are already gone. Lin realizes someone must have planted weapons on board for the hijackers, but since the pilots are gone, the leads are cold. The autopilot is smashed, and the plane starts diving. The dean shouts for Lin to do something. Lin jumps into the pilot's seat, grabs the controls and assures them he can fly it manually. He stabilizes the plane just as air traffic control radios in about them going off course. Lin wipes sweat from his forehead, coolly replies that they had technical issues, and gets them back on track. He manages a safe landing, and everyone disembarks. After landing, the dean tells Lin this feels like a targeted attack against him and Shen, so he should head back to school while the dean investigates further. Shen tries to use the free time to hang out, but Lin cuts her off, saying he has urgent business. Once alone, Lin asks his system why it forced a skill on him. The system explains it will always protect him in life-threatening situations. Lin asks if it can help recover his energy faster. The system admits it can, but refuses to do so yet because it consumes its own energy. After Lin begs, the system agrees to explain it later when he reaches the diamond level. Lin thanks the system for looking out for him. Back at the school, Lin and Shen walk through the empty halls, wondering where everyone is. Suddenly, confetti pops everywhere as Chin, Zhang San, and the others jump out to welcome him back. Lin smiles, happy to see them. A classmate asks who the girl is, and Lin introduces Shen as a new transfer student. Zhang San greets her politely, but others start whistling and teasing Lin about having another girl around. Lin quickly shuts down the teasing, clarifying the situation to avoid misunderstandings. He then asks Chin to go for a walk with him. She blushes but agrees. They find a quiet bench, and Lin apologizes to her. Chin jokingly warns him not to admit to anything bad, but Lin confesses he spent all the money he saved, over $1 billion. She asks what he means, blushing when he mentions it was intended for their future. Lin explains he used the money to help the orphans and destroy the enemy base. Instead of being angry, Chin smiles and tells him she's proud of him for being so kind. Touched by her support, Lin hugs her and promises to work hard so she and their future children won't suffer. Chin turns bright red and shyly tells him not to talk nonsense about children yet. Lin changes the subject to praise Chin, noting that she's about to break through to golden rank soon. Chin playfully smacks him, saying she has to train hard to keep up with someone who is progressing way too fast. Lin pretends to be hurt by her punch and jokingly asks for her care, backing away in mock fear. A few days later, Lin is meditating in his dorm room. He smiles, remembering how Chin hit him out of embarrassment, and admits it still stings a little. He jumps off the bed and stretches, thinking about his recent progress. He realizes that, after absorbing 3 spirit beads, his physical strength has increased significantly. He admires himself in the mirror, wondering if he's gotten more handsome, but the system interrupts his vanity with a new alert. The system announces a new skill draw, and Lin gets a night-level body enhancement skill. Thrilled, he immediately confirms the enhancement. The system reports that his physical stats are now roughly equal to a platinum 3-star level. Lin is excited because this physical boost means he can finally use the powerful spatial spirit bead his master gave him. He absorbs it, and energy rushes through his body. He gains a new skill called Space Rip, which lets him create a destructive chaotic zone in a 5x5 area. He realizes he's now very close to reaching golden 6-star. Suddenly, his phone rings. It's the dean, who cuts off Lin's greeting to order him to the training ground immediately. Lin arrives to find a large crowd of students already gathered. Chin runs up to him just as confused. The dean announces that a gold-level spirit beast lair nearby has gone berserk and is endangering the area. The students buzz with excitement and nervousness. The dean explains that other schools are sending teams and that they can volunteer to join the hunt. He warns that it will be dangerous, but adds a sweet incentive. Any spirit stones they find are theirs to keep. Chin points out that, usually, the state controls these lairs, so letting students keep the loot means the situation must be serious. Lin, however, only hears loot and gets excited about getting rich. He immediately raises his hand to volunteer. Chin raises hers too. Lin gets worried and warns her it's dangerous, but Chin insists she needs to go for her own growth and asks Lin to protect her. Lin blushes, grabs her hand, and promises to keep her safe. Lin then remembers something and hands Chin a special spirit gun. He explains it has 20 shots, with the last 5 being powerful enough to hurt even diamond-level beasts. He also gives her his pet egg to use as a shield in emergencies. Chin is confused about the egg but accepts it. Lin still worries and says he should ask Shen Jing to guard her too, but Chin laughs and assures him she'll be fine. The dean watches them from the side, shaking his head at their public display of affection. He notes that the lair's upheaval seems related to an ice system treasure, so letting Chin, an ice system user, go is actually a good strategic move. Days later, the buses arrive at the mountains. The students are told the most dangerous beasts have been contained, so they shouldn't be too nervous. Lin notices a group of female students from Lingwu Suzhou and asks Chen Long why there are no guys. Zhang San explains that their principal, Huang Fu Leng Sui, is known as the Jade-Faced Rakshasa and notoriously hates men, scaring away any male students. Lin imagines a terrifying man-hating tyrant. Just then, a woman taps him on the shoulder. It's Huang Fu Ling Sui herself, looking surprisingly gentle. She smiles and asks Lin if he wants to transfer to her school, leaving Lin completely stunned as her student, Huang Fu Yimeng, introduces her. Lin raises his hand and bluntly refuses the offer, saying he has no interest and is perfectly happy where he is. Madame Huang Fu doesn't give up easily. She nudges him and hints that her school is full of beautiful girls who would be more than willing to date him. She even playfully offers her own granddaughter, Huang Fu Yimeng. This makes Yimeng blush and shout in embarrassment, while Chin, standing behind Lin, fumes with jealousy. Sensing the rising tension, Lin pulls Chin into his arms and declares that he already has a girlfriend, and they are very much in love, so there's no need for any matchmaking. Madame Huangfu pauses, impressed by his loyalty, and then suggests that maybe both of them should transfer to her school. Lin politely declines again and quickly walks away. Yimeng scolds her grandmother for trying to sell her off, but her grandmother simply watches Lin leave, noting that he's one of the few men she doesn't actually despise. Lin breathes a sigh of relief, feeling like he just escaped a forced marriage. He rejoins the group where Dean Ouyang is making an announcement. The Dean explains that the spirit realm has suddenly entered an ice age, making it extremely cold. He hands out down jackets, red for the guys, pink for the girls, and warns that the extreme cold has made the spirit beasts go berserk. The group suits up and stands before the glowing entrance gate. Chin is nervous, feeling an intense pressure, but Lin grabs her hand and reassures her. They step through the gate together and are instantly hit by freezing wind and snow. Lin sneezes, and the team shivers, shocked by how much colder it is inside. They try to get their bearings, hoping it's safe since no beasts are in sight. Just then, Lin spots a massive herd of frenzied spirit elephants charging straight at them. He shouts a warning, grabs Chin, and they all scatter to find cover behind large ice blocks. Chen Long panics, noting that if these are golden-level beasts, they are severely outnumbered. Lin takes charge, instructing the team to draw the herd's attention while he prepares to attack. He tells Duor to stay back and guard Chin. He then calls for Yimeng to activate her domain. She flies up and casts a healing and buffing aura over the team. Empowered by the buff, Lin leaps into the herd, landing a massive blow that sends elephants flying and clears a path. Lin feels the rush of his new strength and charges forward, punching a giant elephant straight in the face and knocking it out cold. He then grabs another elephant by its tusks, lifts the multi-ton beast effortlessly, and starts spinning it around like a weapon, smashing other elephants away. Chen Long and the others watch in awe, barely believing their eyes. Lin tells Chen Long to use his crowd control skill. Chen Long tries to use his Beast King's roar, but instead of a mighty roar, it comes out as a weird chicken-like cluck. The team bursts into laughter, mocking the failed skill. Lin feels embarrassed, but then notices that the strange noise actually worked. The elephants have stopped moving, confused. Seizing the moment, Lin orders everyone to attack at once. The team unleashes their skills, overwhelming the herd. The terrified elephants turn and flee in a panic. Lin is disappointed that the fight ended so quickly, thinking he overestimated the beasts. Chen Long points out that Lin simply underestimated his own insane strength. Suddenly, the defeated elephants vanish, leaving behind glowing spirit pearls. Lin excitedly tells everyone to grab the loot, but Yimeng insists that since Lin did most of the work, he should be the one to collect them. Lin picks up a spirit pearl and insists Yimeng take it, saying everyone contributed to the fight. Yimeng is touched by his kindness but refuses. Lin then hands an ice-type pearl to Chin. Suddenly, Chin gasps and blushes, realizing the energy in the air is triggering a breakthrough for her. Lin quickly helps Chin sit down to meditate and orders Shen Xing to guard her. Yimeng chuckles and hands the entire bag of collected pearls to Lin, insisting he keeps them since he did all the heavy lifting. Lin asks if her team wants any, but Chen Long polite declines, saying they prefer to earn their own rewards later. Then, Yimeng suggests that it would be better if their group split up. Lin is visibly shocked and hurt by the suggestion. Chu Mo explains apologetically that traveling with Lin is too easy, and they won't get any real training if he defeats everything instantly. Lin sadly agrees, realizing he accidentally scared them off with his power. Before they leave, Lin hands them some signal flares and tells them to use them if they get into any danger. Yimeng smiles and leads her team away. Lin waves goodbye, reminding them to stay safe. Once they are gone, Lin takes out his dragon egg and feeds it the rest of the spirit pearls, which it happily devours. Lin decides to wait for Chin to finish her breakthrough. He looks around the snowy landscape and notes that this zone is much larger than the last one they visited. He's impressed by how many gold-rank pearls they found so quickly. Suddenly, Lin sneezes. The system pops up to explain that these giant elephants usually live in warm grasslands, not snow. Lin rubs his nose and realizes the extreme cold is exactly why the beasts are losing control. The climate change here must be recent. Just then, Chin lets out a shout as she finishes her breakthrough. She smiles and confirms she has reached the golden rank. She looks around and asks where everyone else went. Lin dramatically pretends to cry, joking that they were abandoned because he is too strong. Chin rolls her eyes and pushes him away. Shen Xing asks where they should go next. Chin senses a pull towards some distant ice mountains. Lin agrees but warns that it's through a forest. Just then, he spots a lone elephant wandering nearby. He sneaks up on it and grabs its tail. The elephant tries to panic and run, but Lin tells it to relax and accept its new job as their mount. Chin and Shen Xing hop onto the elephant's back, which scares the poor beast even more. Lin calms it down, promising not to hurt it if it behaves. He jumps on as well. Suddenly, Shen Xing shifts to look at something and accidentally bumps Chin forward. Chin presses against Lin's back, making him blush and enjoy the moment. However, Shen Xing shouts a warning and points to some ominous dark clouds gathering ahead. The elephant starts getting nervous. Lin uses his special vision and realizes those aren't clouds, they are black-winged locusts. He explains they are weak individually but breed incredibly fast. Lin complains about their bad luck and smacks the elephant, yelling at it to run. Shen Xing asks why they are running from weak bugs. Lin explains that a swarm of this size could overwhelm even a diamond-ranked fighter. Lin realizes the swarm is heading for the exit to the human world, which would be a disaster. He makes a split-second decision, jumps off the elephant, and tells the girls to keep running while he stays behind to hold off the swarm. Lin prepares to fight the swarm alone, but suddenly, a wave of frost freezes several locusts. He turns to see Qin, who has jumped off the elephant and refuses to let him fight by himself. Shenxing agrees, insisting they stick together. Lin, touched by their loyalty, pats Qin's head and agrees, but warns them to stay safe. The three of them get into position. Lin unleashes his thunder of 10,000 armies, summoning thousands of lightning bolts that fry the first wave of locusts instantly. He's pleased with the result, and follows up with another powerful thunder attack. However, the sheer number of locusts is overwhelming, and some manage to slip through and attack Qin. She defends herself but is panting, nearly out of energy. Lin realizes they can't keep this up. There are just too many enemies, and his own energy is draining fast. He decides to take a risk and uses his spatial tear skill. The space around them cracks open, unleashing a devastating storm of lightning that wipes out a massive chunk of the swarm. Qin is amazed, but Lin is exhausted. He asks the system if there's a way to restore his energy quickly. The system warns that it can refill his energy, but it will cost him later since the system can't recharge itself. Lin doesn't care about the cost. It's life or death right now. He orders the system to do it. Instantly recharged, Lin feels stronger than ever. He tells the girls to stand back and watch the show. He opens a spatial gate, forcing the swarm to funnel toward him, then blasts them with another massive thunder attack. As soon as his energy dips, he orders the system to refill him back to 100%. With unlimited energy, Lin spams his spatial tear, shredding the entire swarm effortlessly. Shenxing watches in awe, blushing as she admires Lin's endless stamina and power. Once the swarm is gone, Lin flies back to them and smugly asks if he looked cool. Qin stares at him blankly for a second, then suddenly hugs him tight, relieved he's safe. Lin hugs her back, promising he won't die before he marries her. Shenxing interrupts their romantic moment to point out the aftermath. Millions of dead locusts cover the ground. Lin's eyes light up with greed. He jumps down and starts digging through the pile, expecting to find tons of spirit beads. However, after frantically searching, he finds nothing but low-grade items. Disappointed, he picks up a single large bead, crying dramatically about his bad luck. The bead suddenly absorbs the residual energy from the dead locusts, glowing brightly. Lin decides to feed this energy-filled bead to his dragon egg later. Back on the mammoth, Lin checks his system rewards. He draws a new B-rank skill, proficiency in spirit beast language, which lets him talk to animals. He decides to test it immediately on their mount, calling out, "Hey, big nose." The elephant is shocked to hear a human speak its language, and asks if Lin is some kind of almighty being. Lin dismisses the praise and asks what happened to this realm. The elephant explains that a month ago, a mysterious blue light appeared in the center of the realm, lighting up the sky. After that, the weather started getting colder every day. Lin wonders if this strange treasure is connected to Qin. As they travel deeper into the realm, Lin discusses the mystery with Qin. He finds it strange that the school elders searched this place but missed such a powerful treasure. He suggests that maybe the treasure was taken and something else is calling Qin. He tells her not to overthink it. They'll find out the truth once they get there. Suddenly, Qin gasps, noticing something strange ahead. Lin stops and asks Qin what's wrong. She explains that the mysterious call she felt from the center of the realm has suddenly vanished, as if it was never there. Lin rubs his forehead, realizing they can't rely on her senses anymore. He suggests they split up to search the area, and the girls agree. They fan out, and Lin activates his X-ray vision, hoping to spot something. Suddenly, Shenxing calls out from a provocative pose, telling them to check elsewhere. Lin gets a comical nosebleed and quickly turns away, agreeing to search another direction. Night falls without any success. The giant mammoth curls up to sleep, and the trio gathers around a campfire. Shenxing is disappointed. They found nothing, but Lin reassures her that the central area is huge, so they shouldn't rush. They decide to rest and continue in the morning. The next morning, Lin wakes up feeling refreshed, but Shenxing looks serious. She reports that their giant mammoth has vanished without a trace. Lin is shocked. Shenxing explains that if it had run away, they would have noticed, meaning someone or something must have taken it silently. Lin deduces that whatever enemy could steal a massive high-ranking beast without waking them must be at least diamond rank. Qin worries about putting everyone in danger and suggests retreating. Lin considers the threat. If an enemy could snatch the elephant so easily, they might not be able to escape if they become targets. He agrees to leave the area and regroup. He asks Qin to hold onto his backpack while he consults his system. Lin asks the system for intel. The system refuses to give direct answers but hints that everything is under control and calls this an opportunity for him. Lin presses for more details, asking if the enemy is human or beast. The system refuses again but grants him a new A-rank skill, Favorable Wind Ears, which boosts his hearing by 100 times for 30 minutes. Lin thanks the system, who calls him cheesy. Lin analyzes the situation. If the system says it's an opportunity, the enemy can't be unbeatable. He suddenly realizes what happened and loudly announces he knows the culprit. He declares himself Detective Lin and explains that only a space-type spirit beast could silently move the elephant. Shenxing agrees with his logic, and Qin warns that space beasts are tricky. Lin signals for silence and activates his new hearing skill. He picks up strange sounds from the forest and detects a beast with blood-red eyes watching them. He whispers the location to the girls. 500 meters ahead, he opens a portal, and the trio jumps through, appearing directly behind the spying beast. Shen Xing immediately punches it in the face, making it spit blood. However, the beast recovers quickly. It grins maniacally, bares its sharp teeth, and vanishes into thin air. Shen Xing tries to chase it, but Lin stops her, identifying it as a space wanderer, a dangerous, vengeful diamond-level beast. He warns that recklessly chasing it is a trap. Qin asks how he knows so much, and Lin explains the beast's violent nature, noting that since Shen Xing punched it, it will definitely come back for revenge. Shen Xing licks her lips, excited by the challenge, which makes Lin and Qin joke that she is the real demon here. Lin wonders why a diamond beast is in a gold realm and suspects it might be holding the treasure the elephant mentioned. Using his super hearing, Lin detects the beast lurking behind some trees nearby. He signals the girls to play along with the trap. He sits by a tree, pretending to be exhausted, and suggests they rest. The girls agree and settle down. Qin leans against Lin, pretending to sleep. 2 hours pass and Lin's arm is numb. He wonders if the beast has figured out their trap since it hasn't attacked yet. He is determined to catch it for its valuable pearl and treasure. Suddenly, Qin opens her eyes and quietly grips Lin's hand. Qin smiles and offers to massage Lin's numb arm, which makes Lin feel grateful to have such a caring girlfriend. He uses his wind ear technique and hears footsteps, quickly shushing Qin to signal that the enemy is approaching. The spirit beast tiptoes toward the group, while Shen Xing is still sound asleep. It spots them and lunges with a malicious grin. Lin gives the signal, and Shen Xing wakes up instantly, revealing it was all a trap. The beast appears behind Shen Xing to strike, but she counters calmly, opening a red vortex and grabbing the beast's fist. The beast laughs as it starts pulling Shen Xing into its own spatial portal. Shen Xing cries out in confusion as she gets sucked in. Qin asks Lin what to do, worried about where Shen Xing is being taken. Lin stares at the mysterious gate, but remains oddly calm. He tells Qin there's nothing to fear. If it were Qin being taken, he'd be worried. But since it's the little demon Shen Xing, they should really be worried for the beast instead. Qin is confused by his logic. Suddenly, Shen Xing bursts back out of the gate like a cannonball, kneeing the beast in the face and sending it flying. She follows up with a massive punch to its chin, shouting a challenge. Lin points up at the scene, proving he was right. Shen Xing is more than capable of handling herself. Shen Xing beats the beast down, declaring she won't let it escape this time. However, Lin shouts a warning from below. Distracted by his voice, Shen Xing looks away, giving the beast just enough time to slip back into a portal. It leaves only its head sticking out to laugh mockingly before vanishing. Lin realizes too late that the beast tricked them. He spins around in panic, spotting the beast emerging from another portal right next to Qin. He yells her name, but it's too late. The beast shoves Qin into the portal. She reaches out desperately, screaming Lin's name, but he can't reach her in time. The portal closes, leaving Lin staring in despair. The narrator explains that this space wanderer is unusually smart. It was originally just a platinum-level beast, but stole a powerful treasure by waiting for other beasts to weaken each other first. It then hid from the human experts who cleared the realm, surviving until now. Back in the present, Lin explodes with rage. His body radiates immense killing intent as he vows to wipe out the beast's entire clan if it hurts Qin. He orders the system to track the beast's location. The system pings a signal to the front left, showing the target is moving fast. Lin sprints after it like a whirlwind, his only thought being to save Qin. Meanwhile, the space wanderer carries Qin over its shoulder, laughing as it teleports through gates. Qin forces herself to stay calm, realizing Lin must be chasing them. She decides she needs to stall for time. She notices the bag Lin gave her earlier and remembers the strange protective item inside. She pulls out the dragon egg and smashes it against the beast's head. The dragon egg starts emitting a blue smoke as it drains the space wanderer's spiritual energy. Terrified and weakened, the beast is forced to let Qin go. Qin lands safely, still holding the egg, while the space wanderer struggles in midair, shocked by the overwhelming power of this insignificant object. It feels like an ant compared to the pressure radiating from the egg. Qin looks at the egg with satisfaction, realizing she underestimated it. She recalls how Lin always fed it energy, and now sees just how useful it is. Emboldened, she pulls out the spirit gun Lin gave her, deciding she doesn't need rescuing after all. The space wanderer senses danger as Qin aims the gun. She fires a few shots, but due to her lack of experience, she misses. The beast mocks her, thinking she's harmless. Finally, a bullet hits, but the beast just laughs it off, barely scratched. It starts to gather energy, its body swelling and muscles bulging as it prepares to charge. Qin remains calm, remembering Lin's words. The first few shots are weak, but the final bullet was loaded by Din Ouyang himself and can take down even a diamond-level beast. With renewed confidence, she aims and fires the last shot. The bullet flies like an arrow of fate, piercing straight through the beast's mouth before it can even finish its thought about being invincible. The beast collapses, its life fading away instantly. Meanwhile, Lin and Shenxing are rushing through the forest when they see a beam of golden light shoot into the sky. Shenxing recognizes it as the spirit gun's blast. They sprint toward the light and find Qin standing over the defeated beast, safe and sound. Lin rushes over and hugs Qin tightly, telling her she scared him to death. Qin blushes and assures him she's fine. Lin is amazed that she took down the space wanderer alone. Qin credits the egg and the spirit gun. Lin realizes the Dean's power bullet saved the day. He praises the egg, promising to help it hatch soon, and the egg wobbles happily in response. Shen Xing points out that the dead beast's body is glowing. It dissolves, leaving behind 2 gems. Lin picks them up. One is a normal spirit pearl, but the other is strange and incredibly bright. He asks the system about it. The system identifies it as an ice soul pearl, a rare treasure that has been purified and is now perfect for Qin to absorb. Lin excitedly hands the pearl to Qin. She immediately feels a connection to it, realizing this was the call she sensed earlier. As she absorbs it, her power skyrockets, jumping straight from golden rank 1 to rank 9 in moments. Lin and Shenxing are stunned by the rapid breakthrough. Lin worries about side effects, but the system assures him it's a safe, comprehensive upgrade. The system panel explains that the Ice Soul Pearl still has plenty of energy left, which will continue to help Qin's future cultivation. Lin jokingly asks if he can have one too, but the system snarks back, asking if having me isn't enough, accusing Lin of being greedy. Lin just grins and says the more the better. Shenxing notices the snowstorm clearing up. Lin confirms that since Qin absorbed the pearl, the realm is returning to normal. They approach Qin, who is floating in a glowing aura. As she lands, she opens her eyes and smiles, announcing she has reached platinum rank. She feels incredibly powerful and has even awakened a new ice domain skill. She demonstrates by freezing the ground, explaining that anyone inside her domain gets a huge boost to ice damage and magic recovery. Lin is impressed, calling it a magic fortress. Qin playfully touches his nose and asks if he wants her to protect him. Lin blushes and steps back, reminding her that his student is watching. Lin then holds up the other spirit pearls and tells the girls to guard him while he levels up. He sits in meditation, and a massive surge of power erupts around him. Moments later, he breaks through to golden rank 7. Shenxing and Qin watch in admiration, noting how rare it is to jump 2 ranks at once. Qin adds that even elite clan members don't get this kind of boost. Lin stands up and reveals he also absorbed a skill pearl. He takes Qin's hands and asks if there's anywhere she'd like to travel. The atmosphere turns romantic, and Qin blushes, confused. Lin tells her not to blink, then hugs her and teleports them instantly. Qin screams in surprise. They reappear near a gate, and Shenxing is impressed. Lin explains he can now teleport anyone he touches up to 1,000 meters away. Shenxing calls him amazing. Lin decides it's time to head back since the realm is stable. Meanwhile, near the entrance, Chumo and his teammate Cixi are terrified as a giant elephant charges toward them. Just as they prepare to fight, they notice writing on the elephant's trunk that says, "Lin's elephant." Lin calls out to them, asking why they are there. The elephant stops attacking and happily wraps its trunk around Lin. Chumo sighs in relief, explaining they weren't attacked but were definitely scared. Cixi informs them that the principal has ordered everyone to return to school since the issue is resolved. Lin agrees and they head to the entrance where Dean Ouyang is waiting. The dean welcomes them back, but is shocked to sense Qin's power. He realizes she jumped from silver all the way to platinum in just a few days. He quickly pulls Lin aside and demands to know exactly what happened in the spirit realm to cause such a massive power spike. Lin explains everything that happened in the spirit realm to the dean. The dean is shocked by the danger they faced, but relieved that Lin and the others handled it so well, praising their achievement. He then shifts the topic to Qin, noting that since she has reached platinum rank, she would be a strong contender for the upcoming world competition. Lin immediately shuts down the idea, flatly refusing to let Qin participate. He asks the dean to keep her power level a secret from her, explaining that he plans to win first place himself and doesn't want Qin risking her safety in such a dangerous tournament. The dean reluctantly agrees, respecting Lin's wish, but noting that ultimately, if Qin decides she wants to join, he won't stop her. Lin coldly replies that they will cross that bridge when they come to it, vowing internally to protect her no matter what. Suddenly, the dean's phone rings. It's Old Six with urgent news. Teams from Country M, Country C, and others have arrived for an academic, but things have turned ugly. For the past 3 days, foreign students have been brutalizing the local students in the arena. Shocked and angry, the dean orders everyone to return to the academy immediately. Back at the academy, a student named Da Zhao is knocked to the ground by a massive fireball. Han Juning watches worriedly from the sidelines. A blonde student named Luca from Country M steps on Da Zhao's chest with a smirk. He mocks the academy, calling them pathetic for not winning a single match in 3 days. Han Juning orders Zhang San to treat Da Zhao, but Fei Qi, the leader of the Country M team, stops her. He coldly states that injuries are part of the game, and elders shouldn't interfere. Han Juning argues that this is supposed to be an exchange, not a fight to the death. Luca, meanwhile, is live streaming the beatdown on his phone. He makes lewd comments about Han Juning to his viewers and gives a thumbs down to the defeated Da Xiao. His viewers mock the academy in the chat, but one brave voice calls them out for bullying the weak while the main forces are away. Luca threatens to kill Dashao if he doesn't surrender. Dashao refuses, saying he'd rather die. Luca shrugs and prepares to blast him with another fireball. Just as he fires, a resistance fire ring blocks the attack. The Dean, Lin, and the rest of the main team have finally returned. The Dean tells Shenxing to teach Luca a lesson, but warns her to hold back a little. Shenxing steps forward calmly. Luca laughs at the petite girl, but before he can finish his sentence, Shenxing punches him so hard he coughs up blood and flies backward. Luca struggles to stand, furious at being humiliated. He charges up his flames and tries to attack Shenxing while her back is turned. The Dean instantly steps in to block the attack, scolding Luca for trying to ambush a child. Fei Qi complains that they are guests, but Lin cuts him off, calling out their hypocrisy for injuring local students while crying foul when their own get hit. Fei Qi falls silent, embarrassed. He tries to save face by claiming Luca is their weakest fighter and pointing out the academy's losing streak. A beautiful girl named Anchir from Country C steps forward to defuse the tension. She suggests that the previous fights were just warm-ups and proposes they start the real professional exchange, now that the main team has returned. Dean Ouyang scoffs at the academic exchange, noting that his students were just warming up. He offers to warm up with them himself, which makes Anchir nervous, knowing how powerful he is. Lin cheers from the sidelines, praising his master, and Anchir tries to deflect, saying they are only here to test the young talent, specifically eyeing Lin because of his space abilities. She proposes a traditional 5-on-5 tournament. The Dean shakes his head and counters with a bold offer. His team of 5 will face their entire group of 14, with the foreign team allowed to swap fighters mid-battle. And Cheer and her team think the Dean is crazy for giving them such an advantage. The Dean sweetens the deal with a high-stakes bet. If his team loses, he'll hand over the confidential weapon data. If they win, the foreign team must give them tons of celestial spirit ore. And Cheer hesitates, but eventually agrees after consulting her superiors, who believe victory is guaranteed thanks to their secret weapon, Jia. Lin whispers to the Dean, worried about the bet. The Dean smirks and clarifies that he only promised to give the data, but never specified when, implying he could stall indefinitely. Lin gives a thumbs up. Admiring his master's cunning, the match begins. The Dean selects his team: Lin, Shenxing, Chen Long, Lin Yunxian, and Qin. Qin is nervous, but steps up first. She walks to the center of the arena, and instead of fighting one-on-one, boldly challenges the entire opposing team to come at her all at once. Fei Qi, the foreign team leader, is insulted by her arrogance, and orders 6 of his students to attack her. Qin calmly unleashes her new ice field skill, instantly freezing their feet to the ground. She then summons an ice bow, and fires a barrage of freezing ice arrows, taking down all 6 opponents in seconds. She even fires a warning shot that lands right next to Fei Qi's foot, scaring him. Lin and Chen Long cheer for Qin's incredible progress. Chen Long teases them about being a couple, making Qin blush. She pretends to be annoyed but secretly feels happy to be fighting alongside Lin. Suddenly, a blast of fire melts Qin's ice. A new challenger steps forward, Linda, a powerful platinum-rank fire user from Mist Country. She scolds her team for sending trash earlier, and arrogantly declares that she will handle Qin herself. Linda smirks and asks Qin if she needs a break to recover her energy before they start. Qin calmly declines, saying the previous fight barely drained her. Impressed by her confidence, Linda introduces herself as a Platinum 5-star Fire Awakener and immediately sets the arena on fire, creating a fiery ring around them. Linda wastes no time and challenges Qin to show what she's got. Outside the ring, Lin is worried. He knows Linda is way higher in level and her fire element naturally counters Qin's ice, especially since Qin just reached platinum rank. Inside the ring, Linda attacks with a massive blast of fire. Qin blocks it with an ice shield but realizes Linda's power is on a whole different level. Qin flies into the air to gain an advantage and rains down ice blocks on Linda. Linda scoffs and counters with a flame origin technique that easily melts Qin's attack. Qin realizes her standard attacks won't cut it, so she summons her ice domain and unleashes a powerful vortex called Heavenly Ice, Earthly Snow. The sudden boost in damage forces Linda to dodge, surprising her. Linda finds the challenge exciting and escalates the fight with her 9 Heavens Fire Rain. Qin matches her with absolute zero, and the two exchange powerful blows without backing down. Outside, Fei Qi is stunned that Qin is holding her own against someone so much stronger. Inside, Linda admits Qin is skilled and would probably win if they were the same level, but arrogantly claims she is stronger right now. Qin disagrees, declaring she isn't necessarily weaker. She summons massive ice pillars to break Linda's fire circle and launches a fierce combo attack. Linda is forced to flee, sweating nervously. She realizes Qin is abnormally strong for her level, with endless energy reserves. Suddenly, Linda jumps behind Chin, surprising her. Instead of attacking, Linda smiles, pinches Chin's cheek, and suggests they call it a draw since neither can defeat the other. Chin agrees with a smile, but secretly breathes a sigh of relief, knowing her domain was the only reason she lasted this long. Fei Qi is baffled by the sudden peace treaty. Linda approaches him excitedly, assuring him that Chin must be their strongest fighter and that their own monsters can handle the rest. Fei Qi nervously agrees, hoping their secret weapon will be enough. Meanwhile, the other matches proceed. Lin Yunxian chokes out his opponent Nobita, securing a win. Chen Long also dominates his fight, beating his opponents so badly they cough up blood. The referee declares Ling Wu Shanghai the winner of both matches. Fei Qi starts to panic as he watches his team lose again and again, and Chi'er points out they only have 3 fighters left. Fei Qi looks on in despair, admitting he completely underestimated how tough Ling Wu Shanghai would be, and Chi'er is frustrated, rubbing her face and complaining that they haven't even gathered enough intel on Lin yet, and they're already down to their last 3 trump card fighters. Fei Qi is equally annoyed, watching the other team celebrate. Meanwhile, Chen Long is being praised by his team for his recent win. Wang Hui offers to heal his injuries, but Chen Long politely declines. He accepts a milk box from Lin instead, saying he just needs a quick rest and might even take down one more opponent. Lin cheers him on. Suddenly, a new challenger steps onto the arena. It's DI, a C-rank gravity user, radiating fiery energy. He confidently tells Chen Long and Lin to give up since they're already hurt. Chen Long realizes DI is dangerous and perceptive. He asks Lin if he would give up in this situation. Lin smirks and says a real man never quits. Chen Long then turns back to DI and arrogantly beckons him closer. Lin joins in the taunting, yelling for DI to come meet his daddy. Enraged by the insults, DI explodes with power, his eyes glowing red. He unleashes his gravity field technique. Chen Long instantly collapses to his knees, crushed by the weight. He realizes with horror that DI is a rare gravity user. Chen Long forces himself to stand through sheer willpower and challenges DI to knock him down again. DI laughs, finding Chen Long amusing, and increases the gravity pressure 20-fold. Chen Long crashes to the ground, coughing up blood and feeling his energy drain rapidly. He tries to resist but is paralyzed by the immense force. DI prepares to deliver the killing blow, telling Chen Long to accept his death. Just as he strikes, Lin suddenly intervenes, knocking Dai's hand away and saving Chen Long. Lin helps his weakened friend up and opens a teleportation door to bring him back to safety. Safely back with the team, Chen Long apologizes for losing, coughing up more blood. Zhang Sun and Wang Hui rush over to help. Lin comforts Chen Long, telling him he did well and to rest while he handles the rest. Back in the arena, DI laughs and points out that since Lin stepped in and then left, he technically lost by the rules. Lin glares at him, disgusted by his shamelessness. The crowd starts murmuring, criticizing DI for being dishonorable and embarrassing his country. Meanwhile, a purple-haired girl watching the livestream on her phone praises Lin for his loyalty and sends a rocket gift to the stream. Chen Min, who is filming, thanks the viewers for their enthusiasm and promises to keep streaming regardless of the outcome. Viewers flood the chat with support for Lin. Lin considers his options, figuring Shen Xing can handle the remaining fights. Suddenly, Anchier steps in and tells Lin he can continue the match, overruling Fei Qi's objections. She reminds Dai that their goal is learning and exchange, not just winning. Di quickly changes his tune, claiming his earlier aggression was just a joke, and offers a handshake, introducing himself as Di Hawao. Lin isn't buying it. He smirks and flips Di the middle finger instead, saying, "F you." Di smiles outwardly but internally fumes, wanting nothing more than to destroy Lin right then and there. Dai loses his temper completely, letting his anger take over. He gathers his strength and throws a gravity-fueled punch, telling Lin that since he wants to play games, they'll use real power. But by the time Di swings, Lin is already gone. He jumped high into the air to dodge. Lin counters with a move called Dimensional Dive. Di manages to dodge it, which makes Lin smile. He realizes Di has studied his skills, but he thinks Di is still too naive. Lin figures if he can't hit the person, he'll just blanket the whole area. He unleashes his thunder of 10,000 armies, sending lightning bolts everywhere. Di is shocked by the wide-range attack and uses his spiritual energy to defend. When the smoke clears, Di realizes he isn't hurt much. He regains his confidence, reminding himself that Lin is only gold rank while he is platinum. Smug again, Di mocks Lin and activates his own area skill, Gravity Field, cranking the pressure up by 50 times. Rocks start floating around him as he boasts about his intense training. Di's gravity attack wraps around Lin, and Di laughs, telling him he's done for. But Lin just smiles and says it's not over yet. He admits the gravity is strong, but claims it won't stop his skills. He activates Thunder God's Strike, opening a vortex in the sky that rains down massive lightning bolts. Di panics, realizing the attack covers the whole arena, meaning Lin would get hit too. But when he looks back, Lin has vanished. The lightning strikes Di directly, making him scream in pain and cough up blood. Suddenly, Lin teleports right behind him. He tells Di this is just the start and that he won't forgive him for hurting Chen Long. Lin delivers a powerful rabbit foot ice kick to DI's face. DI stumbles but stays standing, realizing Lin is terrifyingly strong. Lin coolly tells him he could end this in one move but chooses not to. Instead, he starts pummeling DI with his enhanced beast fist, asking if DI likes bullying people and playing dirty. DI is shocked by Lin's overwhelming power and wonders how a gold rank can be this strong. Suddenly, Lin stops mid-attack, grabs DI by the collar, and asks if he knows how to swim. DI is confused but honestly answers no. Lin smiles and says that's great because he's taking him on a trip. He opens a portal and tosses DI inside. The opposing team panics, and in cheer shouts, asking where he sent him. Lin laughs and jokes that DI might be at a beach resort, but internally reveals he just dumped him in the shallow pond next to the school as a lesson. And Cheer is terrified, and Fei Chi quickly orders his team to go rescue DI. One of DI's teammates curses Lin, but their leader, Masoda, steps in. He tells everyone to calm down and says his student Tachibana Sapio will avenge them while Lin is tired. The dean recognizes Sapio as a sword prodigy who combines strength and swordsmanship. He warns Lin about Sapio's skill and suggests letting Shen Xing fight instead. Lin disagrees and asks the dean if he has a spare sword because he wants to have a duel. The dean is shocked but hands over a fine sword, warning Lin to be careful with it. Lin admires the blade and promises to win efficiently. Sapio steps forward and politely introduces himself, saying he hopes to learn from Lin. Lin nods, appreciating his manners, and offers to give him some pointers. Sapio is happy, but his master Masoda is annoyed by Lin's arrogance. Lin decides to let Sapio make the first move, warning that if he goes first, Sapio won't get a chance. Sapio rushes in, drawing his sword and promising not to hold back. He jumps high for a powerful slash called Great Unity. Lin admires the technique, noting Sapio's talent, but simply dodges the strike, thinking it's a pity. Lin smiles and swings his sword at Sapio, who quickly blocks it. Lin criticizes Sapio's technique, saying it lacks heat and fails to showcase his master's essence, calling it a waste of natural talent. Sapio is stunned by the blunt critique. Watching from the sidelines, Fei Chi is amazed that Lin blocked the attack, while Masoda is annoyed that Lin is insulting him to his face. Sapio challenges Lin to block his Great Unity move to prove his skill. Lin accepts the challenge, complimenting Sapio's sincerity. He explains that his own sword style focuses on speed and one-hit finishes. He rushes forward instantly, moving so fast that Sapio freezes in shock with Lin's blade already at his neck. Lin asks if he saw it clearly. Sapio, sweating, admits he didn't. Lin shrugs and says he's out of options then. Sapio realizes Lin's skill far surpasses his own master's. Deeply impressed, Sapio drops to his knees and begs Lin to take him as a disciple. Lin is baffled by Sapio's sudden submission but mischievously suggests he might consider it if Sapio switches citizenship. Fei Chi is furious, accusing Lin of poaching his team member, while Masoda insists Sapio would never betray their country. Lin approaches Fei Chi and apologizes for calling him trash earlier. Masoda grumbles that it's too late for apologies. Lin corrects him with a smile, clarifying that he actually meant Masoda is worse than trash, so calling him trash was an insult to garbage. Masoda is speechless with rage. Lin ignores the angry reactions and tells Sapio his offer still stands. He walks away, chuckling that Sapio is actually considering it. Fei Chi panics, realizing his team is falling apart. Linda lost to a lower rank, and now Sapio is almost defecting. Next, a blonde girl named XOA steps up. She introduces herself as a Platinum 6-star Mental Awakener. Lin gets defensive, realizing mental types are tricky. He plans to end the fight quickly by teleporting her away. Lin teleports behind XOA to grab her, but she anticipates his move and binds him with a purple energy string called Spirit Binding. Lin falls to the ground, paralyzed. He curses, admitting mental skills are even more annoying than spatial ones. XOA steps on Lin, asserting her dominance. She forces him to sit up and lifts his chin, explaining that his body is now hers to control. She leans in close, pressing her chest against him and calling him a handsome, cute bunny. Lin blushes and awkwardly reminds her he is married. XOA ignores him, kneeling between his legs and grabbing his bunny tail, cooing over how soft it is. Watching from the sidelines, Chin is furious. She explodes with jealousy, shouting that she hasn't even touched his tail yet, so it's unforgivable for XOA to do it first. Her friends struggle to hold her back as she threatens to charge into the arena. XOA continues to tease Lin, licking her lips. Dino Yang warns her to stop or face disqualification. Lin panics, unable to move. Suddenly, his system detects his excited state and forcibly activates an S-rank mental shield to prevent neurological damage. Lin happily accepts the help. The shield triggers an explosion of energy that breaks XOA's bindings. Lin stands up, free. He tries to grab XOA again to teleport her, but she jumps back, shocked that a gold rank broke her control. She tries to bind him again, but Lin's blue shield blocks her mental power easily. Realizing her tricks won't work, XOA stomps her foot and leaps into the air to change tactics. XOA glares coldly at Lin and launches her spirit binding and mental pierce attacks. She mocks him, warning him to surrender before she loses control and beats him senseless. Lin smirks, thinking, "In your dreams," and activates his mental shield. The blue barrier blocks XOA's attack, leaving her stunned and confused because usually, her technique drives people crazy. Lin taunts XOA, asking if that's all she's got. He opens a portal to absorb her attacks, then teleports behind her. XOA panics, fearing she'll be tossed into the river like Dai. Instead, Lin slaps her bottom hard. XOA turns beet red and stammers in shock. Lin squeezes her again, declaring he is taking revenge for her touching his bunny tail earlier. He starts spanking her repeatedly, scolding her for being rude and trying to undress him in public. XOA screams in embarrassment, begging him to stop. Disclaimer: this is only a fictional story, so do not attempt anything like this in real life. If you do, you will be fully responsible for your own actions. From the sidelines, Chin fumes with jealousy, remembering how Lin once spanked her with a mop. Zhang San and the others watch with nosebleeds, shocked that Lin would do this right in front of his girlfriend. Chin finally snaps and yells at Lin to stop. Lin freezes, panicking as he remembers Chin is watching. He stops immediately, trying to convince himself he was just defending his dignity. Yixoa runs away, rubbing her sore bottom, and angrily asks how he dared to do that. Lin argues that since she touched his tail, it's only fair he retaliates. Furious, XOA activates her spirit-binding domain. Lin suddenly feels his spiritual energy vanish, and his beast transformation is forcibly cancelled. He realizes her domain blocks spiritual techniques for both of them. XOA charges at him with pure physical strength, landing a heavy blow that forces him back. They exchange fierce blows. XOA is shocked that Lin can match her physical strength despite her being stronger on paper. Lin realizes her technique is lacking and sees an opening. He lands a critical strike that breaks her stance, leaving her stunned that her domain didn't give her the easy win she expected. Lin arrogantly tells XOA that while her body is strong, her technique is sloppy compared to his. He decides to demonstrate real skill. He uses a move called Rabbit, descending the mountain, which XOA barely dodges. He follows up with Rabbit, Strength, launching a lightning-fast flurry of strikes that overwhelms her defenses. The Dean watches in amazement, noting that Lin's hand-to-hand combat skills look like they belong to a master with decades of experience, which is impossible for an 18-year-old. Meanwhile, Fei Qi is on the phone with his superior, who is watching the live stream and is extremely disappointed. The superior orders Fei Qi to obstruct the Huaxia team after the match while they figure out a plan. Fei Qi hangs up, sweating nervously, realizing he is in deep trouble as he watches XOA losing the fight. Lin prepares to deliver the final blow to XOA, but she suddenly raises her hand and surrenders. Confused, Lin asks why she's stopping. XOA admits she has already lost, but then blushes and says she wants to ask him something personal. Lin assumes she is about to confess her feelings and quickly rejects her, saying he has never liked her. XOA gets angry, calling him crazy for his arrogance. Lin awkwardly admits he was just acting out a familiar scene. Annoyed, XOA asks her real question. Did her spirit binding actually work on him at the start? Lin honestly admits it did. Shocked, she asks why it stopped working later. Lin jokes that his handsomeness must be a sin that breaks spells. Flustered and fed up, XOA officially admits defeat. The Dean declares Ling Wu Shanghai the winner, though he is internally puzzled about how Lin broke the mental control. The students cheer for the victory. Fei Qi, realizing he has lost the bet, tries to leave immediately, promising to send the items later. Lin and the Dean are stunned by his shamelessness. Lin confronts Fei Qi, asking if he thinks he can just leave whenever he pleases. Fei Qi tries to assert his status, but the Dean steps in, blocking his path. The Dean lectures Fei Qi, saying an academic exchange shouldn't end so abruptly, and insists they stay. Fei Qi argues that forcing them to stay is illegal, and threatens violence if necessary. The Dean's temper flares, and he threatens to eliminate Fei Qi and his entire team if they try anything, regardless of who they represent. Fei Qi tries to bluff, mentioning he has powerful allies. Suddenly, a massive flame erupts, and Shen Taisong, Shen Xing's grandfather and a supreme expert, appears. He scolds the foreign team for causing trouble in Huaxia. Shen Xing happily greets her grandfather. Shen Taisong teases her for never visiting him, then praises Lin for his performance in the match. Shen Taisong asks Lin to translate for him since he doesn't speak their language well. Lin agrees but takes liberties with the translation, turning Shen Taisong's words into a string of insults directed at Fei Qi. Fei Qi gets angry realizing Lin is mistranslating on purpose, but Lin insists he is just following orders. Shen Taisong orders Fei Qi to call his superior. Fei Qi complies and hands the phone to Lin. The superior on the other end tells Fei Qi to stall for time, but Lin relays this immediately to Shen Taisong. Shen Taisong is furious and threatens to endanger the hostage students if the sky blue spirit ore isn't delivered within a week. Lin takes over the call, introducing himself as Shen Taisong's representative. He demands the ore in exchange for the students' safety. The superior, a Mo country general, tries to negotiate, asking for the students to be released first. Lin refuses, stating they will only be released once the ore arrives. The general is forced to agree, promising to send it within 2 days. Lin also demands extra payment for food and accommodation, which the general reluctantly accepts. After the call, the general orders his subordinate to prepare the ore. The subordinate questions giving up such a valuable resource, but the general explains that the students, especially Linda and Jia, are their main force for the upcoming world competition, making them far more valuable than the ore. Back at the arena, Lin reports his success to Shen Taisong, who praises him. Fei Qi is in tears, realizing his career is ruined. Shen Taisong dismisses the crowd, declaring the issue resolved. As everyone disperses, Qin sternly asks Lin how it felt to touch XOA's bottom earlier. Lin, not realizing who asked, absent-mindedly admits the feeling was indescribable. Qin immediately grabs his ear and drags him away to discuss it further. Lin yelps in pain, trying to explain, but his protests are drowned out as Qin drags him off, leaving Chen Long and Zhang San secretly envious of his lively relationship. And that's the end of this episode. If you want the next part, make sure to hit that like button and help us hit 1,000 likes. And I'll drop the next part as soon as we reach the goal.